Hello dear viewers, support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it, and also make sure you comment your thought. Now let's start the video. It had been a month since the double date. Harry was busy with some of his personal projects, and Natasha was somewhere in Russia on an urgent mission only she could complete to get some information that had been eluding S.H.I.E.L.D. for ages. Tony was busy modifying Mark 10 or something, and Bruce was still brewing up a storm with what was easy to replenish. Harry had taken him into a new greenhouse recently, and he was excited for the new ingredients to add to his own greenhouse. Harry had taken Natasha out on a couple of dates. They were really starting to click, and Harry was close to asking her to become his official girlfriend. Harry had been able to get the enchanted necklace done for Bruce, which would allow him to leave the house whenever he wanted. Bruce had been elated. He also liked the stylized werewolf on the necklace, making it symbolic and also manlier than the flower Harry had threatened. Harry had completed another surprise or two and one big one for Fury, for when he was ready. Currently, though, Harry was working on a dark detector. Every time Harry was almost done getting Fury's faux glass completed, it would fail. It was like the enchantments were fighting each other. He'd had to modify it to be bloodbound to the director so that it would work for him, and he suspected that that aspect was affecting the other enchantments. Harry had decided to go for a walk to clear his mind. He was on his way to an ice cream van when he felt a powerful presence trying to get into his mind. Looking around, he saw nobody, so he decided to follow the source of the mental attack. He concentrated and let his magic free. The connection was from far away, but he felt the origin as somewhere in New York. He knew what that meant. A little distraction might be exactly what the doctor ordered. Smirking, he apparated to the gates of 1407 Graymalkin Lane, Salem Center. Harry stood silently at the gate, with a spell in place to obscure his features. He saw children playing outside. Harry had read the reports. Xavier Institute was a school for mutants, though he hated that word. It was too close to freak. He had found the reports to be very interesting. He waited for the mental probe to find him again. He knew it wouldn't be long. He was right. When the mental assault happened again, Harry noted a moment of panic from the other side when it realized where he was, before the attack stopped. It took about 5 minutes, before the front doors opened and the gate swung inward. Harry decided to take it as an invitation and walked up the path to the mansion. As he went, he watched the children, noting that they seemed happy. Whatever happened here was obviously done for the children, not to them. Harry noted there were 3 people waiting for him: a beautiful dark-skinned woman with white hair, a brunette man with red sunglasses, and a bald older gentleman in a wheelchair. "Hello," Harry said with mock friendliness. "To what do I owe the pleasure of your assault?" Suddenly the man, Scott Summers if Harry recalled correctly, took a step forward and his hand went to his sunglasses. "Wait," came a sharp call from the wheelchair-bound man. "This man is beyond you, Scott. We're not enemies here." He turned his face to Harry. "And I'm afraid I don't understand. What assault? What do you call it when you attack my mind while I'm simply taking a stroll down to the beach?" Harry asked, still smiling. He knew he could have all 3 of them knocked out and in a cell in under a minute if he so chose. Protocol X was actually created with Charles Xavier and people like him in mind. "Telepathy," was the professor's simple answer. "I was simply trying to break through some kind of block to get in contact with you. That block, as you call it, is an intentional shield. It protects my mind from mental assault, like the one you attempted. Attacking me is never a good way to make friends." Harry replied, losing the smile. "If you ever try it again, I'll respond in kind," he said lowly. "You're a telepath as well?" the professor asked, shocked. "We didn't know. We saw telekinetic abilities, energy manipulation of some sort, healing, flight and teleportation. The ghost of Manhattan has many a gift," the professor chuckled. "Even now you're somehow hiding your identity. I'm assuming you are not a mutant?" "First off, I'm not telepathic. I just had to deal with some very powerful ones in the past, so I learned to protect myself. Secondly, if that's all you know, I'm assuming you normally don't read unwilling people's minds, otherwise you'd have found out who I was by other means." It seemed Xavier had not decided to dig into the mind of the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was a good sign and something Fury would love to know. "Thirdly, I only have one ability. It's just infinitely variable. And lastly, I hate the word mutant. It has a very negative connotation for me. I prefer genetically enhanced, even though I am not one." The professor's eyes widened. I'm sorry for attacking your defenses then. Had I known, I would have sent someone instead, he said solemnly. As long as you know and don't try it again. My mind is impenetrable, but it annoys me and can hurt after a while. When that happens, I have a means of forcefully breaking the connection that might leave you in a coma. Harry warned. I will strive to inform my people that you are not to be tested on this then, he replied. Could we start over? He then asked. My name is Professor Charles Xavier and this is my school. The woman to my right is Aurora Monroe and the man to my left is Scott Summers. Aurora smiled and waved at him. Harry smiled back and nodded. Scott didn't do or say anything, apparently trying to be menacing. Harry smirked at him. Professor X. Storm and Cyclops. I believe, Harry said, nodding. My code name is Ghost, as you know, and will stick with that until I've found out what you wanted to contacted me for, he said. Xavier looked at him appraisingly. I'm assuming you know about the X-Men then? At Harry's nod, he continued. We had a situation occur last night, and when we went to assist, one of our younger members was attacked and injured. They are not responding to our normal means of treatment and I decided to contact you for your healing abilities, Xavier explained. Harry was suddenly all business. Lead the way, he said. Just like that? Xavier asked. You're telling me a kid is somewhere in there in pain and you want to stand here talking about it? Harry exclaimed, pointing into the mansion on the verge of anger. He'd seen enough children suffer. You are right, of course. Follow me, Xavier said. It seemed this man had similar attitudes to mutants than to regular people. It was rather refreshing, considering he wasn't one of them. As he led the way, he asked, Are you an alien or were you somehow modified? I'm afraid that information is a secret. Only those who know me and I consider my friends are allowed to know, Harry stated, following the man as they entered a hidden elevator. Xavier pressed the button for a basement level and the doors closed. Aurora and Scott went with them. What do you mean allowed? Xavier queried. I can block knowledge when the situation calls for it. Those who betray me forget they ever knew me. It protects my secrets and my friends. Harry responded. Scott tensed and Aurora frowned. Xavier frowned as well. Have any of us ever met you? He asked, wondering if that was why he seemed to know them. He was worried what he might have brought to his school. If this person decided to attack them, there may be no stopping him. Had the situation not been so severe, he would never have tried to contact him in the first place. He wondered now if it was a wise choice. No, we have never met. I know of you because I work closely with a certain agency that wishes to protect this world. Because of certain genetically enhanced hostiles, there is a lot of information about you, Harry said. Not that we would know, Scott spoke up for the first time. So he's not a mute, Harry exclaimed, and turned to Cyclops. And no, you wouldn't, but that would be the point, wouldn't it? But I promise you, I've only come to your gate once, so that I'd know how to get here, should the need ever arise. Had I been in here before, I'd have transported myself directly inside for the professor's rather rude attempt to breach my protections. Or I'd have put him in a coma. But how would I remember not to do so if you wiped my memory? Xavier asked with a smirk. That would be your problem. Just be glad you know you get one warning. Harry said unrepentantly. And that neatly supports your statement of not having come here before. Xavier sighed. We have no choice but to trust you on this. Xavier had a curious look and asked, May I ask another question about your powers? The doors had opened and they were now moving down a hallway. You may ask, Harry said noncommittally. If you can wipe memories, can you also recover them? Xavier asked. It's possible, Harry answered, not seeing a reason not to. Then we might have another friend who'd like to speak to you, Xavier said as a door opened and they were allowed into an infirmary. Inside there were 3 people, a beautiful redhead, a wild-looking man standing against a wall with a frown, and the patient, a girl in her late teens, by the look of it. She had dark hair with one streak of white at her brow. Harry recognized all of them. Dr. Jean Elaine Grey, Logan, no surname, and Anna Marie, no surname, or Phoenix, Wolverine and Rogue. Harry quickly walked up to the patient without invitation and Logan jumped forward. Claws extending, Harry just waved a hand and knocked him unconscious. He then held his hands over Marie as he knew she preferred being called normally, and started detecting what was wrong with her. I'd prefer not to knock you out and accidentally setting your darker urges free, Doctor, Harry said nonchalantly at Jean, who was currently levitating a needle next to his throat. But if you interrupt me, I can't try to save her. Jean had been shocked when this man had so easily knocked Logan unconscious. Scott looked stressed and Oro was frowning. When the man addressed her without looking, she was tempted to push the needle down and sedate him, but the professor shook his head slightly and she relaxed a bit, putting the needle back where it came from. What do you know about my darker urges? She was still not happy. I can feel it even now. You have a separate powerful entity living inside you, bolstering your own powers. If it feels you are under threat, it might decide to react violently and indiscriminately. Harry said, having found something odd. Please, just give me one more moment, then we can talk. He moved his hand over her wounded abdomen and pulled at what he found. A shard of some sort of metal flew out of her. It was tiny, little more than a splinter. Harry then healed her wounds. It seems whatever this is was stopping her from healing. He floated the shard onto the bedside table, where there was a shallow dish with what looked like water. He dropped it in. Suddenly Marie awoke and shot up, her hand traveling to her side and feeling nothing but unblemished skin. What happened? She asked. Then she looked up. And who are you? You were wounded in a fight, and I am Ghost. Your professor decided to ask for help when they couldn't heal you, Harry said. How are you feeling? No headache or soreness? I'm fine, thank you, she said softly, instinctively moving her unprotected arms away from the man. She was in a gown and her outfit was in shreds and a bin. Harry, knowing of her inability to touch, decided to help her for a bit. He sent a wave of protective magic over her, subtly, and grabbed her hand. You don't need to worry about that when I'm around. She tried pulling back, but when she seemed not to affect him, she took his hand in her other one. How are you doing this? Harry just smirked. It's a gift. He could not imagine life without human contact. You have about an hour before your abilities start working again. Have fun. It was then she noticed Logan on the floor. What happened? She exclaimed, jumping out of bed as the others in the room just watched in awe, as Marie started shaking Logan, trying to wake him. He was a little overprotective, so I had to knock him out, Harry said, slightly apologetic. He waved a hand and Logan stirred before jumping up. He was about to jump at Harry again when he noticed Marie was on her feet and looking back to normal. How long was I out? He growled. Just for a minute. Our new friend here came to heal Marie, the professor said. Sorry about knocking you out. I know you were just trying to protect her, but I was already trying to help her and didn't want to injure her further. It was the quickest way to help her. Harry apologized. Well, just watch yourself in the future, bub, Logan replied, but relaxed. Why do you look familiar to me? Harry asked. I don't know, maybe we met a couple of years ago? Logan stated he still didn't trust this man. That's impossible. I've not been around for long. And what do you mean you don't know? Harry asked. Logan growled out. I don't have memories going back too far. Harry looked at the professor. This the guy you were talking about? That would be him, yes, the professor said, looking around the infirmary at the people looking stunned. I might have just one or two more questions for you, but first, how are you doing that? He pointed at Marie, who was touching Logan's bicep with a bare finger. Logan was looking at her curiously, wondering if she had lost her powers. Just then Bobby ran into the infirmary, having heard someone had shown up to help Marie. He ran up to her and stopped just short. You're okay, he exclaimed, wanting nothing more than to hold her, but stopping himself. To his shock, she jumped on him and kissed him. After the shock wore off, he held her at arm's length, a smile on his face. You can control it now? She brushed his hands off and hugged him, their faces making contact more intimately than ever before. No, but I'm told I have an hour, before they start working again. Let's go. She dragged him out the door. Harry chuckled, waving his hand, and yelled after them. Make that 2 hours. He heard a muffled thank you from two voices outside as the door closed automatically. Ah, young love, so beautiful to behold, Harry said, affecting an old man's wise voice, stroking his non-existent beard. I suggest someone go find them and make sure they are safe, Harry said to the room at large. Ororo quickly left the room to go ensure the young couple didn't do anything they might later regret. Wolverine looked tempted to go with them, but didn't trust himself. He had started caring for the girl like family. Bobby better not break her heart, or he might find himself with a couple of broken bones. You are an interesting man, Ghost. You come here to confront a supposed attacker, only to turn around and help someone you don't even know. I think I may also have underestimated your power too. You may well be Omega level, if not a mutant, at least in powers. Xavier said. May we offer you lunch? It's the least we could do for someone who has been so kind to us. Okay, Harry shrugged. I was on my way for some ice cream, anyway. Might as well have lunch, Harry said. Hold on, are you sure we can trust him? Scott asked, looking at the professor. Jean was also looking at this man with suspicion. He knew too much about her. From the sounds of it, maybe even more than herself. I dare say, if he was an enemy, we'd already be dead. He didn't have to help us, and from his perspective, he would have been within his rights to attack me. He's showing us some trust. Let's see if we can live up to it, Xavier said, with a small smile. They led Harry to a cafeteria where they each got something to eat, and then sat at the main table, watching the children as they ate and socialized. Some of them even played with their powers, pranking each other. Harry smiled. It reminded him of Hogwarts. Children just being children. He saw an odd-looking one sitting in a corner. She had 2 small horns and talons instead of fingers. She was looking at the other children having fun. Harry sent a cheering charm at her, and she suddenly started enjoying her food. When a prank happened, she'd laugh. That's better, Harry thought.
That's strange.
Colleen seems to have miraculously started feeling better, the professor said, looking at the horned girl. He then looked at Harry. Anything I should know? Social outcasts tend to isolate themselves, making it more difficult to integrate. I'm assuming she's new? Harry asked instead of answering. Indeed. She arrived here a couple of days ago. When her changes manifested, she changed to look like that. She feels ugly and so has isolated herself. We've attempted to coax her out of her isolation, but I'm afraid we've had no success, the professor said. That didn't answer my question, though. I know, Harry replied. At the professor's continued gaze, he said, I just cheered her up. It's temporary, but now would be a good time for her to make friends. If she stays isolated, when it wears off, she'll have made no progress. Harry half explained. The professor had a thoughtful look for a moment, and suddenly a group of kids looked up at him. One of them nodded, and then they all got up and moved to Colleen's table. They started chatting, and soon Colleen was talking animatedly with another girl. That worked out rather nicely, I think. Thank you, the professor said with a smile. I like helping kids. They are so honest and happiness seems to come naturally given time. I can't help them all, but when I can, I do. Harry said honestly, Have you ever worked with children? You seem to know a lot about their mental states, the professor asked. I once had a friend that had similar issues, but because he saw himself as a failure, it took years before he could build up his confidence. He turned out to be a great man, Harry said, lost in thoughts for a moment. The professor just let him think for a moment, then asked, Could you explain what you did for Marie? He asked. I knew who she was when I saw her. I just tested a theory by putting a layer of protection over her skin, which would block her ability is all. It's a form of energy, so it should dissipate with time, Harry explained. Could it be made permanent? The professor asked. Potentially, but what would be the point? She'd never be able to use her powers, Harry said. What if she didn't want the powers? The professor asked. Too bad, she has them for a reason. If she wants to turn them off badly enough, she'll learn everything she can about them, and then she'll know how to control them properly. Harry then looked at the professor. Doesn't your research papers indicate that the powers manifest due to a need? Yes, they do. Do you follow my work? The professor asked, slightly intrigued. One of my friends does. He explained some of your findings to me. I'm not smart enough to follow everything. I'm more of a hands-on, learn-by-doing kind of person, Harry said. The point is, the powers, at least, to some degree, should be controllable, if she has enough need, much like when it manifested. You are correct to a degree. When the powers manifest, the need is filled in whatever way the makeup of their genome supports. If, however, at the time, the person or persons do not have the correct understanding, the subconscious cannot implement control, so a power is activated and no control is attainable, because none were part of the desire. The professor temporized. That is my theory anyway. Be as it may, there are people who go their whole lives unable to control their power, and very few are capable of changing them to suit their needs, after activating them. So you're saying if a person's need was to explode to save someone from an attacking enemy or something, but he didn't know to think of reconstituting and his powers activate, he would simply explode and be dead? Harry scoffed. No, the change usually occurs to protect oneself, So in your example, the person would manifest explosive capabilities that doesn't kill them, or they would manifest it in such a way that they could reconstitute. Self-preservation is always part of the change, the professor said. So Marie has personal boundary issues? Harry asked, confused. It is possible. When her powers manifested, she had been a loner. She had a boyfriend, though, and some part of her psyche must have craved for human contact. When she kissed the boy, the emotions triggered her power, and she started involuntarily draining his strength. We do not know how to help her. Your barrier might be the only thing we can do for her, the professor said sadly. I don't believe that. It might help, though. If she can live a normal life for a while and finds happiness in it, she might be more motivated to rein her powers in, subconsciously at least, Harry said. Why is it that you believe so strongly that all power should be controllable? The professor asked. It's the nature of the world. One can't have an on switch without the ability to switch it off as well, Harry stated. You just have to learn how. There is merit in what you say. She might just not subconsciously want to switch it off. I'll think about it. Maybe there is another way to help her. The professor was suddenly deep in thought, thinking about his past experiences, where emotional triggers activated powers only for the opposite trigger to rein them in again. Interesting. What were you doing that got Marie so injured? Harry asked, as he finished his food. There was a situation that involved a mercenary mutant. We went to stop him from destroying a research lab. We only found out afterward they were conducting experiments on people. The mercenary took the job because of a vendetta he has against them. The professor sighed. We attacked him before we knew and he defended himself. Somewhere along the line he cut Marie with a katana. I suspect it is made of a certain alloy that affects mutant healing factors. Carbonadium. I doubt he was aiming to kill her though. He usually doesn't kill women or children. Do you know this mercenary's name? Harry asked. Yes, it's Deadpool, the professor answered. Well, lunch was educational. Thanks for the food and stay out of my head. Harry dug in a pocket, took out a card and focused on it. His name was erased, replaced by only his code name. This is my number. If you need help, call me. If you go looking for trouble though, it's your problem. Harry said as he stood up and stretched out. I've had enough of a break. Back to research. Harry waved his hand and caused a miniature fireworks display to go off inside the cafeteria. While everyone was distracted, children laughing and pointing, he turned the professor pink with green stripes and made the words, "One warning," appear on his forehead. It would last a couple of hours. That should teach him. Then he apparated. When he appeared back at his lab, he took out his phone and called Fury to give him an update. Agent Potter, good thing you called. We need you at headquarters immediately. Romanoff has gone missing, Fury said. Harry immediately appeared in Fury's office, his phone still against his head. Fury looked up and put his phone down. I'm still not used to that, Fury said. What's the situation? Harry asked. He needed to go now. Damn, he should have had a tracking charm on her. We sent her to Moscow. There was a possibility of us gaining some intel about a certain arms dealer that has been evading S.H.I.E.L.D. for months. Natasha's contacts were our only way in, so she was sent, Fury said. Where was she last? Harry asked urgently. She had to go deep, so we lost her a couple of days ago, but she didn't check in an hour ago, when she should have. We know she was still in Moscow though. If you can find her and she's not in danger or worse, I need you to leave her be so that she can continue the mission. Just find out why she missed the check-in, Fury said. Harry was not happy. If she was in danger or worse, people were going to die painfully. His eyes must have flashed because Fury suddenly stood up. She knows what she's doing and we need that information. If she's still on it, leave her to it. Do I make myself clear, Agent Potter? He roared angrily. He didn't need Harry going rogue. Crystal, sir, Harry said through clenched teeth. He knew he was showing disrespect, but he'd not lose her now. If he needed to apologize later, so be it. Fury looked at him angrily, but calmed himself. Look, I know you are sweet on her and I'll waive protocol because you are who you are. But you are also our best at infiltration and extraction. I don't want to lose her either. We don't need Harry Potter on this mission. We need Ghost. Be the shadow and make sure we get her back. If push comes to shove, capture whoever you can and bring them in. We'll use your truth serum, and while Natasha might lose some contacts, she'll be alive. Deal. I understand, sir. Sorry, Harry said, having donned the persona of the Ghost of S.H.I.E.L.D. Here are her last whereabouts. he said, passing Harry a folder. You have your orders. Get to it. And Harry was gone. Fury sighed. He knew he was pushing Harry. This time might have been one step too far. Harry didn't need S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore, but S.H.I.E.L.D. needed Ghost. Natasha was hanging by her arms, a bag over her head. She had come back to consciousness an hour before, but she had not moved, making sure to keep her breathing low, in case someone was watching. She could not make out where she was. There were no sounds, no echoes. She was trying to remember where they had taken her, how they had taken her. Everything seemed so hazy. She had a headache. Someone must have surprised her. She probably had a concussion from where they hit her. The only way that could happen was if someone was waiting for her. A trap. Suddenly, she heard the sound of a door opening and music came from the other side. Someone stepped into the room and the door closed. All was quiet again. She must be in some kind of soundproof room. She realized she must have twitched, because the man started speaking. Ah, you have woken. That is good. I need to see your eyes when you realize why you are here, the man said in Russian. The bag was ripped off Natasha's head and she opened her eyes to see a man that she had never seen before. He had a neat beard and was built like a soldier, even though he was a bit past his prime. He had handsome features and piercing blue eyes with dark brown hair peppered with gray. Who are you? She said in Russian as well. Where have you taken me? You have some questions? That is good. I want to know some things from you as well. Maybe we will have a nice conversation before I kill you, the man said. Who I am comes later. First I'll tell you why and how, he smirked. You were led to believe a certain merchant was coming out of hiding and becoming active again. That was a ruse. We set up a trail to follow so that the only person that could find the information would be the world-renowned Black Widow, the man laughed. But it was set up in such a way that you had to lower your guard when you walked into a nightclub filled with all my people. Natasha scowled. She had started remembering as he spoke. She had been following leads and speaking to old acquaintances for days. One of her contacts told her to meet with someone at a nightclub. He would be waiting at the bar. It was her last lead as well, so she had no choice. She was supposed to check in an hour, so she hoped to find something before doing so empty-handed. She remembered walking into the club. People were drinking and laughing. When she reached the bar, a man was there waiting, just before her memory ended. It was the same man speaking to her now. You were the one waiting for me, she said it calmly, showing no emotion. You are starting to remember. That is good too. So now you know where you are as well. Your question is answered, the man said. As for who I am the nephew of a certain man who was recently abducted and found dead in an abandoned facility you are very familiar with. He was a retired man who had connections that made it easy for him to take a hold of certain, shall we say, underground organizations. He was a dear old man who always had time for his nephew. The man no longer smiled. I am here to thank you for allowing me to take control of this organization. She looked at him, not saying a word. She knew who he was talking about. The man he was referring to was one of the people who was high up enough to escape the consequences of the Black Widow program's downfall, but he was too highly connected for her to get close to without giving herself away. I see you know of who I speak. I am glad you remember him, because it is for him that I will kill you. You may have done me a favor, but he was my uncle and I will need to do what is expected of me by my family's honor. Before I do that though, you will tell me who it is that took him. I know you are not capable of traveling that fast, and I know where you were. What I do not know is who took him. I only have one clue. When all those people were taken, one person, who only revealed what they knew when they were in your shoes, gave me this clue. Ghost. He was looking at her intently. Natasha gave nothing away. She had schooled her features and would not allow this man to know that she knew. The Ghost was in Manhattan fighting the invasion. You know that. Everybody does. He was on television. As were you, and he was there beside you. He flew and you were with him, hanging on his back like a lover on a motorcycle. That picture was a good one too. The women swoon at the idea of a man like that, jealous that someone so beautiful was already on his arm. How lucky you were to be by his side. But he cannot save you now. Did he fly through windows and abduct those people? Was that how he got them out? I don't know what you are talking, she began. Do not lie to me, he screamed suddenly, and slapped her across the face with the back of his hand. She spit out the blood that was suddenly in her mouth. Look at what you made me do to your pretty face. he said as he calmed himself instantly. Don't make me do more, it would be such a waste for a pretty girl like you to have scars over her pretty body. We can speak freely here, and nobody would hear. The implied threat was obvious, as was the smile on his face. I don't know, she said stubbornly. His eyes hardened. Then I am afraid you will not enjoy our conversation, he said, as he took a knife from his pocket. This is a small knife, but it is sharp, so it will help while I skin you alive, piece by piece. He roared. Tell me who he is. Harry was standing in front of a nightclub. He had had Fawkes follow his magic around the city, where Natasha's pouch had traveled until he came to a man in a newspaper stand. When he showed her picture, the man's face showed recognition, but he said he didn't know her. That was all Harry had needed. He sent Fawkes away, not wanting Fawkes to see what he was about to do. He took the man by the collar and apparated to a desert. He had then calmly told the man he would not survive without water, and he would have none if he didn't start talking. It didn't take long for him to start telling Harry everything he needed to know. He had sold her out. Harry sent him to S.H.I.E.L.D., where they could handle him. When he approached the club, a huge bouncer stepped in front of him and said something in Russian. I'm sorry, I don't speak Russian, Harry replied. We are closed. Private party. The Russian said with a thick accent. Oh, okay then, Harry said conversationally. He then sucker punched him and stunned him. Damn, that hurt. The man's head was hard as stone. He placed a disillusionment spell on him and created an illusion of the same guy standing there intimidatingly. His work with Bruce's necklace had helped a lot. He then made himself invisible and walked into the club. He saw a bunch of men and women looking at a screen that showed Natasha being talked to by another big man in Russian. Relief flooded his system. She might be captured, but at least she was alive. In the next minute, all of the people in the club were unconscious. A few shots were fired, but Harry wasn't hurt. Harry spotted the man as he slapped Natasha across the face and he swore. He started looking around the place until he found a back door. He followed the hall behind it until he came to a room. There was a small window and he saw the man inside taking out a knife. He silenced his apparition point and apparated. Harry was behind the man and he silently dropped his invisibility. Natasha noticed him, but her gaze did not leave the man. Tell me who he is, the man was saying. Natasha said in English, don't kill him, we need him. The man laughed and said also in English, I do not care if you need him. He and I will have a nice talk about how he does what he does, and Nanny will die. But only after I have all his secrets, he smiled. Now, tell me who he is, he demanded again. Ask him yourself, he's right behind you. Natasha smirked. I won't fall for that, the man started. Hey, Harry said darkly, dangerously. The man spun on his heel and swore in Russian at the unexpected stranger. How are you in here? There are my people. Harry just stalked closer. You wanted me and now you have me. Let's leave your people out of this. The man jumped behind Natasha and held the knife to her neck. I will kill her. He was sweating bullets. Even if he killed her, he knew he was a dead man. Stop. You think threatening my friend will save you? Harry was still approaching. He waved a hand and the man's arm broke, the knife clattering to the floor. Ah! He screamed. Please, you've got me disarmed. Spare me and I will give you money, houses, women, drugs. Everything I have is yours, he pleaded, falling on his knees after he backed up into a corner. Natasha spoke up. He's hiding a gun behind his back, she said calmly. Suddenly the man grabbed said gun and was about to point it at Harry, when his other arm broke and the gun went flying. Harry had now reached Natasha, but was still stalking toward the man. He looked up quickly, and with a flick, her bonds were undone. Then he continued on to the man. You will pay for what you did. His eyes were shining, and the room started shaking. Please, I'll do anything, the man begged, tears now rolling from his eyes, as he looked at what looked like a devil or avenging angel. That's the problem. You'd do anything to get what you want. You would kill and torture and sell drugs that do the same. You are a murderer and you will die. Harry was fully intent on killing this man slowly for what he had done. Ghost, stop! Natasha was suddenly on him and holding him tightly. Don't let this darkness take you. You would never be the same. She now begged for the man's life. Not for his sake, but for Harry's. I don't want the man you would then become. I want you as you are. There were actual tears in her eyes as she remembered her own dark past, and not wishing that burden on anyone. She had wished so many nights that there was someone there to talk her down from becoming who she had. Harry looked at her now, as if for the first time. He saw her tears, and felt her pain, and knew, somehow, that they were for him. And just like that, the rage dissipated. "Natasha?" he asked, as if in confusion. Then suddenly, "Are you okay?" The man on the floor had pissed himself. He looked up at his would-be killer, and asked, "What are you?" Harry looked at him again and said, "I'm an Avenger," and he knocked the man out. The next day found Harry waking up still fully dressed, having passed out when he got home. He didn't remember everything that had happened after he saved Natasha. He remembered sending the broken man, all his goons and the bouncer to a cell. It would be cramped, but he didn't care. He then came home. Was there something he forgot? "Good morning," came a voice from beside him. Harry quickly looked around and saw the most beautiful thing he could hope for. Natasha was lying in his bed next to him, and she was smiling at him. "You kind of fell asleep on me last night. I never even got to thank you." She smirked at him. "I'm so sorry, Natasha. I should have taken you to base. My mind wasn't completely right. I'll take you as soon you're ready. Fury is probably going to flip," Harry said in sudden panicked rush. "Don't worry, I've spoken to Fury. I used your phone. I hope you don't mind. Mine kind of got destroyed when you brought us." "Not that I mind. I want to get Stark to make me a magic immune one. I've got a suspicion we'll be in closer proximity from now on," she said with a raised eyebrow and a knowing smile. Harry smiled back at her. "I'd like that," he said. "After the invasion it seems everybody knows about me. I'll be useless as a spy now," she finished sadly. "If you want, I can make a necklace for you that will change your features. You'll be able to go back to work and nobody will know what you look like," Harry said, not really wanting to do it, but willing to if she wanted. "You don't understand. Apparently the fact that I was able to rein you in when you were about to kill that gangster is a valued skill as far as S.H.I.E.L.D. is concerned. Fury has assigned me to you as your handler. Fury has also decided that you are too volatile with me out there, and in danger." She finished in her head, not really minding someone caring that much about her even if it made her feel like she was a little girl. Something to play with one day maybe. "I'm sorry. I know you loved your job," Harry said with downcast eyes. "It was a job, one I did to help pay for the sins of my past," she said seriously. "I'm still an Avenger and I can still kick your ass on the mats." She smiled again. "Does your house have a gym?" "Not yet, but I'll sort that after breakfast." He smiled charmingly at her. "If it means I will see more of you." "It just might," she answered him. "I was thinking of buying a property in the area. Can't be a handler if I'm too far away after all." "Actually, I have a surprise for you," he said with a grin. He stood up, suddenly glad he hadn't changed. Apparently Natasha had taken his shoes off, so he quickly put them on. "Are you coming?" he asked. "Not yet," she winked at him. "I didn't really have any sleep clothes on me, so I hope you don't mind." As she said it, she got out of bed and Harry saw she was dressed in an oversized shirt of his, with a moving griffin on it. Harry had to look away as she lifted her arms and stretched, enjoying his reaction. She was wearing only the shirt. "I'll get dressed and see you downstairs in a minute, okay?" Harry nodded, and as he left he saw her folded up clothing and sent a cleaning charm at it. When he was outside the room he stopped to breathe. She would be the death of him and he'd love every minute of it. After cleaning himself as well, he went downstairs and smelled something amazing. Bruce had made waffles. Harry entered the kitchen and Bruce looked up. "Hey Harry, how are you feeling?" Natasha said, "You had a rough day yesterday." "Not nearly as rough as hers," Harry replied darkly. "Before she comes down, I'm about to spring my surprise." "Are you sure you're okay with it?" he asked. Bruce smirked at him. "It's your house, Harry. You can do what you want." "It's our house, Bruce. You get a say," Harry said honestly. "Well, in that case, no," Bruce said with a straight face, until he saw Harry's poleaxed expression and started laughing. "Of course it's not an issue, Harry. Just like I said before, I'd tell you if something you're planning bothers me." Harry sighed in relief. "You're getting way too good at that. I thought you were serious." "Good at what?" Natasha asked as she walked in, dressed in her clothes from the previous day. They looked good as new and fresh off the washing lines, which was the point of the spell. She walked up to him, kissed him on the cheek and said thanks, leaving what she was grateful for vague on purpose, just to see Bruce's expression. Bruce didn't blink and carried on making waffles. "The food is on the table. Help yourselves." Harry went to sit down and took 2 waffles for himself. Natasha did likewise, and they ate in peace. Bruce joined them halfway through with 4 waffles on his plate. Natasha stared at him until he said, "What? I'm eating for 2. She gawked more and both Harry and Bruce laughed while he took 2 and placed them on the serving dish. Actually, Hulk enjoys fruit more, so when he decides to eat, Harry goes and picks some fruit," Bruce said. When they were both done with breakfast, Harry asked Bruce to be excused and then led Natasha to the downstairs west wing. "This is my surprise," he said as he opened up the door. Inside was an apartment. Just like Harry's. In fact, it was almost exactly like Harry's, except that it was better kept and had a green coloring instead of red. Harry led her inside and then walked to the bedroom with its king-sized bed, past it into the walk-in closet. He pointed at the door and let Natasha open the door. When she opened the door, she found an entire room, almost as big as the bedroom, completely stocked with clothing in her size and an entire wall full of shoes as well. Each pair was individually lit in its own little shelf. One entire wall was a mirror, and as she saw her reflection, it looked back at her and said, "You look good, but no self-respecting woman wears the same outfit twice in a row. Now try on something new. The hunk can stay and watch." "Did the mirror just give me fashion advice and compliment you?" Natasha asked, shocked. It was a popular enchantment back home. Girls would ask the mirror for advice, and it would point out combinations they hadn't worn and things that looked good on them. It even remembers when a combination was last worn and gives advice on hair and makeup. Harry replied with a smile. "As for the compliment, it's a reflection of you, so usually a mirror is consulted in private, because it might say things you don't want people to hear. Sorry about that," he finished lamely. "There's no shame. I think you're hot," Natasha said with a smile. "Me too," said Mirror Natasha, who was then jumped by Mirror Harry and started making out with her. Harry fled. Once outside the room, Harry felt his blush slowly disappear. "That is one kinky Harry back there," Natasha said as she exited the room. Harry blushed all over again. Then he realized that Mirror Harry would have disappeared when he did. She was still dangerous. He smirked through his blush. "Well, I suppose it's fair. The mirror revealed something about me and something about you." She just smiled more at him. "What is that room, Harry?" "It's yours, if you want it," Harry said, a little nervously. "It's not that I'm asking you specifically to move in. I do intend to ask Steve and Clint too. Tony has a place with Pepper, so I don't have to invite him, but I suspect he'll want a room anyway if all the Avengers get one," he finished lamely, again. "Well, if it's an Avengers house, I suppose I could live with it," she replied with a coy smile. "Sure, I'll move in, but you're helping me move." "I see no problem with that." Harry was smiling ear to ear. "Any other surprises you want to show me?" she asked while playing with his collar. "Actually, yes," he suddenly remembered. "The basement." He grabbed her hand and led her to the staircase down. She was slightly frustrated that he had not caught her intent, but was swept up by his exuberance. It was on the opposite side of the house from the Marauder's den, which was protected by another Fidelius anyway. When they reached the basement, he led her to what looked like an Olympic-sized swimming pool, with 3 different level diving boards, and a ceiling enchanted to show the weather outside, and if he wanted to when the weather was bad, something nicer. "How is this?" "Never mind, I know how. I just didn't think you could do something like this," Natasha said. "It took Bruce and me a while to clear out enough space so that all this can fit in with expansion charms, but I think it's worth it," Harry said. He was still holding her hand and turned her around. They went to the room on the opposite side of the pool room. This was much the same size, but it was empty. "I'm thinking of making this into a room of requirement." "A room of requirement?" Natasha asked. "A room of requirement or come-and-go room is a very difficult piece of magic. I can only barely cast. I found the enchantments while I was on the run and fighting the war. I actually found it in a Peverell family book. They were my ancestors and a big part of wizarding history. Apparently their family helped the founders cast it in Hogwarts in secret. It is a room that becomes whatever you need it to. You wait outside the room and think of what you want or need, and it becomes that. I'm going to cast it right now, which is why I was so excited to have you here. This will be big. The bigger the room, the more power it takes, but the more it can create," Harry explained excitedly. "What do you mean anything?" Natasha asked. "I mean it can create anything, except for actual nutrition or knowledge or information you don't already own. It can even create enemies to fight with their actual powers." Natasha's eyes bulged. "I must see this," she whispered in awe. Harry had her step out of the room and started chanting. It took 10 minutes, and by the time he said the final verse, he was sweating profusely. Every syllable contained some kind of creation magic, and the room needed a lot of power for what he wanted. He also had to modify it so that it would work for the non-magical, but Harry was a master enchanter, and he knew it would work. When he was done, he fell to his knees, reached into a pocket, and removed a pepper-up potion. He drank it, and felt the relief of having his stamina restored. His magic would take some time yet. "Did it work?" Natasha asked from the doorway. "Only one way to find out," Harry said as he got up. He walked wearily out of the room and went to sit on the steps. "Close the door, and if it disappears, it should have worked." She did as asked, and the door vanished. "How do we open it?" Natasha asked, looking at the wall where the door should be. "Walk back and forth 3 times in front of where the door should be, and think of a place you'd really like to see," Harry said. Natasha did so, thinking hard. When she passed the spot a final time, a door appeared. Harry howled in victory. "Yes," he said. His modification had worked. Natasha smiled at him, opened the Japanese-style sliding door and stepped inside. Inside was a large Japanese dojo, with katana on the wall along with training instruments. There was a large sparring mat in the center. A lone butterfly flapped lazily by the window, and cherry trees were seen outside, and behind them a view of a mountain, with a snow-white peak. "This is amazing," she whispered. Just then an old man in a gi stepped out and onto the mat. "Are you ready, Natasha?" he asked, in a heavy Japanese accent. "This is amazing," she shouted, and ran onto the mat. The old man moved forward faster than she thought possible and flipped her on her butt, off of the mat. "No shoes." Harry had walked up to the door and was looking in. "We do not allow an audience in this dojo. Enter and participate or leave," the old man said. Harry shrugged and walked in, leaving his shoes by the door. He quickly changed into a gi with a white belt and transfigured Natasha's clothes to the same, but hers had a black belt. "Good. Knowing your limitations and your place brings honor to your family," he said as he looked at Harry. "Are you sure she has enough skill to wear hers?" "I am, master," Harry said and bowed, as he had seen on TV. "I am not your master, but while we are in my dojo, you will refer to me as sensei." "Yes, sensei," Harry and Natasha said in unison. "Come, let me test your skill before we start training you correctly," the sensei said. Natasha went first. They bowed to each other and took their stances. Natasha was quick to attack, but the old man blocked her every move with simple, elegant moves. When he countered, Natasha found herself on her butt every time. After a couple of minutes he said, "Good, you are skilled enough to continue at your indicated skill level. But I couldn't get through your defenses once," Natasha said before quickly adding, "Sensei, if you were the sensei, I would have expected more, but I am the sensei, and as such, you will never reach my level without dedicating your life to this art." He then looked at Harry. "Next." Natasha bowed and left the mat to go sit at the edge like Harry had done with her legs underneath her. Harry stepped up to the mat and bowed to the old man. Once they were both ready, Harry started the attack. Just like Natasha, every attack was blocked and he was knocked to his ass more often than not. When they were done, the sensei said, "You are humble, which is good, but you are at red belt level. You are 2 belts behind your friend." Harry was shocked when his belt changed color without his doing anything. It must have been because the room was created by his magic, he thought. They spent the next 2 hours training, and when it came time for sparring, the sensei looked around him and another, younger man walked out from the back. The younger man trained with Harry, while the sensei focused on Natasha. When they were done, they were drenched from their exercise. As they left, the door disappeared. "What happens to sensei when the door disappears?" Natasha asked. "He was a construct of your mind. When you go there again, he will remember you, because you remember him," Harry replied while he wiped his wet face with a conjured towel. He had given her one as well. "How is it that he was stronger than me then? I thought it could only make what I know or remember," she asked. "Did you want to fight a weak opponent or train with a stronger sensei? It is called the Room of Requirement, after all." Harry smirked. "Harry, I could kiss you, but I'm going to go shower first. Tonight though, you're all mine, so no falling asleep on me again." She punched him in the shoulder lightly as she went to her room. Harry chuckled, too tired to even blush. He couldn't wait to see what Bruce or Hulk makes the room into. not even to mention the other Avengers or Fury or Coulson. He suspected Thor would sleep in it, just so he doesn't miss any of the fun, once he was back. Speaking of which, he needed to go back to Asgard at some point, so he'd have to finish his research on the fire whiskey. Harry had been working with Tony and Bruce on their respective projects. Both of them had gone further than Harry had expected possible in the fields they had chosen to pursue. Their extreme pace was personally motivated, and their successes bolstered their efforts. Before giving them their mastery-level texts, Harry had a conversation with them, and they agreed to contract the knowledge they had been receiving for the safety of those around them and the general public. If someone was able to capture them, the secrets of magic would be very bad in the wrong hands. Harry worked the contracts to only block the knowledge temporarily though, so that would not be a problem. Tony was still going through the mastery books for runes as they were meant to be studied over many years. For just one of them, the sheer versatility of the rune intent carving methods was mind-numbing. Harry had long since stopped trying to keep up. Tony had taken his advice to heart and only experimented on runes by remote laser, taking a two-way port key to the remote's secret location only when the runes had proven stable. Harry had to power the runes when they became too power-hungry for the schema to take from the environment. Explosions and strange side effects did sometimes happen, but Harry had started apparating out the minute he added power to the rune cluster, until Tony figured out a way to add a delay into his runes. Since then Harry had been reasonably safe. Tony was currently working on creating a buffered rune cluster so that Harry could power that and Tony could then release the energy into his runes as necessary. It would be a while yet before that was complete. Tony was also working on improving his Iron Man suits with almost wild abandon, but having a couple of friends nearby to talk to was keeping him reasonably grounded. Harry had had to stop him from using calming draughts when he found out Bruce had been supplying him with them. Long-term potion use was bad for the health. He had noticed that Tony was jumpy at times since he went through the portal, and once even had a panic attack. Harry was unable to get Tony to tell him what was going on and he was worried for his friend. Harry had started showing up daily to find out how he was doing and what he was working on. It seemed having Harry there calmed him some. Tony had also started coming to Harry's house and was often found resting in backup plan while Fawkes was sitting on his perch. Harry had one day handed him a book on occlumency, knowing it was an art that required magic to really be effective, but the meditation techniques and mental disciplines would allow him better emotional control. Bruce had even joined him with his study of that book, often in the presence of Fawkes, as it seemed to help them focus on the emotions without letting them affect them. As for their power project, Harry and Tony had worked together on a prototype. At first the magical interference from the rotations was too much, until Tony had created a modified rune that blocked all magical energy from leaking out of the protective shell, but not inside. This had the side effect of having the rotation increase exponentially until the levitation runes burned out. They had more success when Tony modified the levitation rune scheme to also not allow outside magic from adding to the scheme. But that had another side effect of having the magic build up inside the casing until the entire device spontaneously melted. They were stuck until Harry made the suggestion that they convert the built-up energy into electrical energy. It took some time, but when Tony succeeded in creating a rune scheme to convert the magic to the correct energy, it made the device stable with the fringe benefit of doubling its power production. The best part was that the scheme would activate itself when enough magic was built up. So Harry didn't need to power the scheme and Tony could start production on the first ever self-sustaining power reactor, named the Perpetual Motion Generator, or PMG for short. Tony was also considering using some of Harry's adamantite to power his runes with the generator's excess magic, but that project was put on a shelf when Harry insisted they try to make their own first. The little bit of adamantite he had was a precious commodity, and Harry was not willing to use it if they couldn't produce or procure more. Harry had suggested that before they started production of the PMG, Tony should create a rune cluster that would destroy all the runes, should someone open the PMG to see how it works. This was a big task, but Tony was certain he could do it, eventually. They'd wait for that to be completed before sending their patented technology out into the world. It didn't stop them from installing the prototype at Harry's house to power their needs. Bruce did not complain. The device was also small enough to fit inside one shelf of a cupboard, so powering everything from there was up to Harry and Bruce. Bruce in the meanwhile had not needed to use another calming draft. Apparently having a couple of friends around that the Hulk actually liked, along with a phoenix, had him calm more often than not. Harry had gotten permission from him once to enter Bruce's mind to see if he could speak with Hulk, not read his mind but speak with him. While Harry was in there, Bruce had discovered a connection with Hulk and had started speaking to him. It wasn't control, but he suspected he'd be able to keep the line open when Hulk was out as long as he voluntarily changed. That started, if not a friendship, at least a form of understanding and partial partnership. Harry had transported Bruce to a desert, where Bruce had told Hulk he could come out, and it actually worked. Hulk was happy to be able to come out at will without a trigger, and his connection with Bruce grew stronger. When Harry spoke to Hulk, they had decided that whenever Bruce was feeling cooped up, Hulk would get some time to relieve his stress. Harry would create targets and Hulk made a game of destroying targets faster and faster. When they changed back, Bruce was elated. He had been able to follow everything and got some satisfaction from watching Hulk destroy targets that were made for the purpose. Apparently Hulk liked Bruce's and his new friend and was, for the first time, content to rest inside Bruce, knowing he wasn't being suppressed anymore. Bruce was studying the potions he was currently capable of, at their different stages of completion, under electron microscope and with other devices, so that he could see the interaction and energy readings. His own equipment was far too sophisticated for Harry to understand everything, but was all shielded from magic, so Bruce was happily making breakthroughs on an almost daily basis. His primary focus was to modify potions to work with only what he could produce, rather than dipping into Harry's stores of magical animal ingredients. Sometimes he'd need to see a reaction using the actual ingredient, so he'd know how to modify things, but so far he'd had some success. Bruce would study the reactions and record everything so that he could go over his findings again when necessary. He would carefully study the animals, whose parts they had, taking care to study their habits, diet and their life cycles from Harry's library. When he knew everything about them that he could, he would try and find out what about their nature affected their magic and potency in potions. Harry had even let him use some of his blood for potions, but would not allow it unless he understood what Bruce was doing or trying to do, so he ended up learning quite a bit more about potions himself. Tony had long since asked for a bottle of fire whiskey to analyze, and had come back the next day slightly tipsy with the process that was involved. Correct aging, what kind of wood the barrels had to be, and what distillation processes to use. He'd even started the process of getting the required hardware and purchased a distillery. If he was going to have access to the best whiskey, if not alcohol in general, in existence, that would just be a perk. In the end, it took Harry only a couple of days to get the enchantment right. It didn't even take a lot of effort. After all, the Ogdens would need to cast it, and Harry was very capable. The only problem was that there was something special in the brewing process they had yet to find. He suspected a magical ingredient was the cause. Bruce was still analyzing the ingredients they had for their unique properties in multiple devices and spectrometers. Magic immune, of course. When Harry refused to give another bottle to Tony, he started helping Bruce. That ended up doing the trick. Bruce and Tony had finally observed enough to come to the conclusion that it was two ingredients, a plant that they were already using, and traces of crushed ashwinder eggshells. Fortunately, Harry had a bit to spare before his stocks started running too low for comfort. Bruce then went to the books and found out what amount of ingredient per barrel, as it was one you'd add after the whiskey was made, and it was left standing to age. Harry's hunch had been correct, and they were able to produce a couple of ashwinders. They were serpentine, so Harry had been able to speak to them and control them. Their stock of ashwinder eggshells and ingredients had been slowly rising as the population grew. Bruce was ecstatic. He'd had some success at modifying some potions to work with the new magical ingredients as well. Harry was then called in to work on a quicker aging process. This was a very delicate job, as it required very exact casting and isolation for the barrel for at least a day, as the barrel would age a year in an hour. Fortunately, it only worked on inanimate objects. Bruce actually found it. The spell was found in a potions book where an ingredient needed to age before use. The next day they gathered their ladies and Bruce, and went for a taste test. Well, Harry brought the barrel to his house. No way was he leaving it at Tony's. They opened the barrel and Harry scooped out a glass for everyone. To making fire whiskey, Tony said excitedly. They all toasted and took a sip. And winced. It was too strong. Somewhere in the distillation process, they must have made it too strong. That or the magical ingredients affected the alcohol level. The taste was right, but the alcohol content was too high. Tony had the solution, of course. He'd simply heat it up and run it through a process to get rid of some of the alcohol. Harry had a better idea. You remember how Asgardians tend to think our alcohol isn't strong enough? Harry asked. You're going to send the barrel to Asgard? Natasha asked. Then she nodded. That's actually a good idea. Thor should get a kick out of it. I was actually thinking of giving it to Odin. He'd be more responsible with it. Thor might actually die from alcohol poisoning with this stuff. Odin savors the flavor while Thor chugs, Harry said. That's a smart idea. You wouldn't want to be accused of attempted murder, Pepper said. Hey, this is our first batch. I wanted to at least keep the barrel for posterity, Tony said. Harry thought about it and said, with a nod, I like it. We should put it in bottles anyway, and you can keep one so you can figure out how to refine the process so that the proper amount of alcohol is made in the end result. Harry said. Tony smirked and reached into his pouch. When his hand came out, he held in his hand a bottle marked SPB, Fire Whiskey, and a small label at the bottom, aged 24 years. It had a fire motif with the Avengers' faces on a crest. Stark Potter, Banner Fire Whiskey sounded too long, so SPB. Why not BPS or PBS? Harry asked. Acronyms for other things, Bruce supplied. I don't mind. Technically, we're stealing the recipe anyway. From who? Bring them here and have them sue me, Tony said belligerently. Tony, that's crass. You know they can't, Pepper said, looking at Harry, wondering how he'd react. Screw them. We've got fire whiskey, Harry said joyfully. Yeah, screw them. Tony cheered and took another sip, which he almost spat out. That's really too strong, he said sadly. Tony took out all the bottles he had stored and gave them to Harry, who transplanted the magical liquor. 74 bottles. Apparently Tony had done the math and brought 175 bottles. Harry had to erase the alcohol content labels, but doubted Asgardians cared about that. Tony and Pepper left with a bottle from Harry's stores and the barrel. Then Harry asked his two housemates, who wants to go to Asgard? Bruce begged off, saying he'd rather not take the Hulk to a culture of violence. Harry thought it was a fair point. Natasha, however, loved the idea. Harry didn't know, but she wanted to make sure the ladies kept away from her new boyfriend. Had he known, he might have actually liked it, but he hadn't gotten around to asking yet, and she respected him enough to wait, though her patience was running thin. Their sparring had already become harder on Harry as a result. Okay then, let's just... Harry created a large crate, used a large sticking charm on the bottom, transported the bottles inside and closed it up, before shrinking the crate and slipping it in a pocket. Then he froze. Oh, we might want to get dressed up. Asgardians celebrate gifts with feasts, and this might get a bit rowdy with what we are bringing. What should I wear? Natasha asked. I'd suggest armor, but let's go with our battle attire. They'd respect that, I think. Maybe I should go into my stores one of these days and make you a dragon hide armor. Wait. Harry rushed off and went into his trunk. When he came out, he had a green dragon hide outfit, which he had forgotten about. It was from when he was younger and a bit less muscular. He was a bit bigger than Natasha, after all. Maybe it would fit. Maybe the enchantments for comfort would hold up. Natasha took the armor to her flat and a minute later called Harry. I need your help. Magical armor seems to work differently. Harry went to her door and asked, Are you decent? No, but come in anyway, she answered. Harry braced himself and walked in. She was struggling to get the armor to go over her underwear. Oh damn. Forgot about that. You'll have to remove the underwear. It functions like a second skin. You would technically look like you have scales. That model was meant to be worn under your clothes. Harry blushed slightly and turned to leave. Stay, won't you? Don't you like seeing me? She asked softly. You know I do, and I could look at you all day, but I know you are more than your looks. I didn't like when girls ogled me like a piece of meat, and I show the same respect I feel I deserve. Can you understand that? When we are intimate, that's something we share. When you are getting dressed, I know what I want to do is look, but then I feel dirty. Harry tried to explain as best he could. I sometimes forget you are a gentleman, and I appreciate that, Harry. If it makes you feel better, I will try to respect that. Though, to be honest, a little dirty is fine. He could hear the smirk in her voice, even with his back turned. After a minute or two, she said, You can look now, and Harry turned around. It was snug, much like her bodysuite, but the lines had somehow changed. There was a definite femininity to it, and her chest, while hugged by the scales, made her seem firmer. and she was not exposed in any way that would be considered indecent. She looked leaner, more athletic. That was actually a good thing, as Asgardians were a strong people. You look really good, Harry finished in a whisper. How does it feel? Harry then asked. It's strangely very flexible, almost like I'm not wearing anything at all. Natasha flexed and squatted and twisted. It's somehow comfortable. Magical armor does that. It should help against extreme temperatures as well, Harry said, still looking at her. Maybe just add a leather jacket and a belt for effect. That's what I'd do anyway. There are seams for a belt. She looked down but couldn't see them, but her fingers felt them. She quickly added a belt and a jacket. That perfected it. The green worked well with her hair and her eyes. The jacket broke the singularity of the outfit, and the belt made it look like the outfit hadn't simply melded to her skin. Perfect, he said. Go check the mirror. She did. Oh yeah, Harry heard Mirror Natasha say. I'm looking good. You and Loverboy going out? People are going to be jealous of him. Harry had almost forgotten to don his own armor, but by this point it was second nature to him, and he summoned it onto himself in seconds. When Natasha came out, her grin was infectious. I really like that mirror. Sometimes it says exactly how I feel, and I didn't even know the words. I should have shown it to Pepper. Probably a good idea to keep Tony away from it though. Natasha had finally started referring to Tony by his first name. Probably the friendships between the couples. Okay, I think we're ready to go, Harry said, tapping his pocket to ensure his gift was still in place. Let's go then, Natasha said. Fox, Harry called, and the phoenix appeared. He looked at them and nodded his head. A small warble, and Harry replied, Yes, we're going to deliver a gift. And I'm showing off Natasha so that Frigga can stop trying to set me up. Wait, what? Natasha asked, her eyes suddenly hard on Harry. Fawkes let out what could only be a laugh and landed on Harry's shoulder. Soon they appeared by Heimdall. Greetings, Harry Potter and Natasha Romanoff. He greeted with a half-smile. I'm afraid you missed the messenger. He's probably already informing Odin of your coming. Now he smiled properly. Damn it, I wanted to surprise them. That's why I left as soon as I could. Harry stared at Heimdall. Hi, he finished grumpily. Greetings, Heimdall of the all-seeing eye, Natasha said. You didn't spoil my other surprise too, did you? Harry asked suddenly. I have not. Your gifts are yours to give, but my duty is to ensure no visitor arrives unannounced. Heimdall said. He then looked towards the citadel and back at them. He had obviously been informed to send them on. You may away. You are expected. Odin has called up quite a gathering. Many wanted to see you and your phoenix. Heimdall said. Natasha started walking, when Harry picked her up, bridal style, and started flying towards the citadel. Natasha wondered at the beauty of the place. There was just so much to behold. When they landed, the guards opened the door for them, and this time, they were not greeted by the Warriors Three. Harry walked in confidently, with Natasha by his side. When they reached the throne room, they waited to be announced. The doors swung open, and this time, there were many more faces in the crowd. Apparently people wanted to meet the wizard that bested Loki in his own game, among others. Odin spoke up. Greetings, Harry Potter. You are welcome back to the halls of Asgard as friend. Come forth so that we may greet you properly, he boomed. They walked up to the throne and Harry bowed deeply. Greetings, your majesties, King Odin and Queen Frigga. Harry looked at Thor, who was standing next to his father's throne. And to you, Prince Thor. Harry turned back to the king and queen. This is Natasha of the Romanoffs. She was one of our number when we defeated the army that sought to take Midgard for themselves. I hope that finds your approval, as I realize that I had not discussed guests at our last meeting. You speak well, as normally we would not allow a mortal in our halls. And fortunately we still do not. Your companion's life flows much like your own. And as such, no law has been broken. I do, however, request that you speak to us. Should the desire strike you to bring one such as the mortals of your realm. Odin spoke loudly. Welcome, Natasha Romanoff, guest of Asgard. You are a warrior, and as such our people will show you the proper respect. He then turned to the crowd. You may begin the celebrations. Music flared up and people started talking. Harry and Natasha were looking at each other and at the same time said, Harry, Natasha. Come, dear Harry, lovely Natasha. You will sit by us. We have much to discuss. Frigga said. Harry shook himself and said, I almost forgot. I come bearing gifts. Harry produced the small package from his pocket. He laid it on the floor and unshrunk it. He then vanished the lid and cancelled the sticking charm. He reached down and picked up a bottle, which he handed to Odin. 173 bottles of our first batch of fire whiskey. Watch out, for this one's much stronger than the last, Harry said with a smile. At the display of the magical drink, Odin's smile grew wide. You bring us a precious gift, and so much of it, you will be richly rewarded. I would prefer that you taste it before you think of reward, for it may fall on an unworthy man, Harry said solemnly. It is my and my partner's first endeavor into this enterprise, after all, Majesty. Thor looked hungrily at the many bottles, but knew to wait for his father's judgment. He'd need permission as well, as it was not a gift for him, but his father. Your words are wise and well thought out, as always. I shall taste this drink before we celebrate its success, Odin said. Many had stopped to watch as Odin spoke to the crowd again. He opened the bottle and sniffed it, smiling at the aroma. Indeed, it does smell like the previous nectar, but the proof is in the taste. He poured a drink in a glass that was brought to him on a platter. He looked at it first and swirled it around in the glass, letting the tension in the hall grow. Harry thought he knew where Loki got his flair for the dramatic. He then lifted it to his lips and took a small sip. His eyes closed and he let out a breath, the fire flowing from his mouth as the last remnants of the liquid in his mouth allowed the enchantment to activate. Harry Potter, he paused. I'm afraid that when you set out to replicate the wonder of the fire whiskey, you failed. He paused again as if in thought or trying to come up with some advice. Instead, you have improved upon it, he finally said loudly. The crowd cheered and Thor's smile threatened to split his face. He came up behind Harry and slapped him on the back for his success. Indeed, this wonder must be shared. Take some bottles and set it among the tables, and let all here pour a glass and toast to the creator of this marvelous drink, which lifts spirits and burns away weariness, he intoned. A couple of bottles were quickly spread through the hall and everyone soon had a drink in hand. To the wizard and his fire whiskey, Odin cheered. They all toasted and had a drink. There was a chorus of sighs and then a roar of approval, as everyone's moods lifted with the enchantment. There was wonder in the eyes of most as they looked at their cups and glasses, many deciding to sit down and enjoy what they had slowly. I will need to commission much more of this drink from you, as it seems many will despair when I store the vast majority of this in my personal stores. For the right occasion, Odin said more quietly to Harry. Indeed, I already see jealous eyes on my prize from some few. I fear an insurrection should I not find adequate supply, he chuckled. Maybe I can help quell some of the tension, if I may, Harry offered. Please, Odin replied. Harry nodded and conjured 20 large glass water pitchers and filled them with water. He then made it into butterbeer. Lastly, he floated the pitchers to the tables so that there was some to drink near everyone. That was a good idea. Tempers seem calmed already. Maybe we can discuss a supply of butterbeer as well at some point. I'm afraid we don't have any of the original left for my partners to analyze. The only copy of the original taste exists in my memory and enchantments. I have recently been commissioned to enchant a tap to produce what I have here, but the result is still temporary and turns back to water after consumption, Harry explained. Perhaps Asgardian magic holds the solution. I myself have command of an affinity for enchantment, Odin said, thinking of when he set an enchantment on Thor's hammer to only be lifted by the worthy. Harry was dumbfounded. That actually sounds amazing. Do you own a library where I might find information about such things? I'm afraid the magics of Asgard is a strictly verbal tradition. If you prove worthy of it, I might find time to instruct you in such matters at a later date, Odin said. He knew well that their relationship is currently rather one-sided. A little bait might yet catch this fish. Thor then picked up a bottle and looked at his father hopefully. Very well, but that is the only one you get. Until we can start supplying more, this will be the only stock we have. Our wizard friend here may not be strong enough to carry the gold we pay him for this, and what we order from him. Odin chuckled. These here are a gift to you, Majesty. I would not take payment for it. You are my friends and I have mere chance to thank for the strength of the drink, Harry intoned. What do you mean? Odin asked. In our preparations we made a calculation error and this is much too strong for mortal stomachs. Take heed. It is just as magical as the previous bottle, if not more so, and as such, does not quickly dissipate. I fear overindulgence in this could be harmful to one's health, even to those such as the Aesir, Harry cautioned. I shall take your counsel to heart, but I must contest one of your statements. You will take payment for the gift, as the value of what you have given us is great. Should I accept it for nothing, it will be worth nothing. We must always remember, the worth we set for our services today sets our worth in the future for rendering the same, Odin said wisely. You sound like a good friend of mine, Tony Stark. He is a businessman, and he gave me much the same advice, Harry said. He had noticed Frigga chatting to Natasha. Ah, yes, the Iron Man. He does sound like the clever sort. Odin smiled over his glass. Now go, join the ladies and let an old man enjoy the camaraderie of his drink in the laughter of the hall. Thank you, Majesty. Harry bowed and left to go sit by Frigga and Natasha. Hello, Harry. Welcome back and thank you for your gifts. It makes me happy to see Odin so content. It is seldom that someone brings us something so well suited to our tastes. Frigga said. You are welcome. I enjoy being able to supply something that brings you so much enjoyment. Harry replied. Enough with the pleasantries. Frigga suddenly said, we must converse of something important. Of course, Queen Frigga. What can I do to help? Harry said seriously. You can make up your mind, Frigga said angrily. You are young and noble. Natasha here informs me of your gentle heart and fierce protectiveness. From where you hail, you were lorded many times over, and you have yet to fail when you meet your enemy in battle. There are those who would fight for the honor of being by your side, and since you have chosen this exceptional Midgardian ascended as your chosen companion and you are as yet unbetrothed, many will see her as an inconvenience and challenge her right to your heart. What? Harry asked. He had many questions from her statements, but couldn't decide which statement to start with. Natasha will need to inform you of her situation in her own time, as must you your own. Are you ready to propose marriage to Natasha? I can feel your burgeoning love for each other, but is that enough for you to propose? Frigga asked. I am not ready to propose, but I will admit I am falling in love with her, Harry said with a faint blush. I will not give her up, and I do not need anyone else, Harry said vehemently, and his eyes flashed. Calm yourself, Harry, Frigga said calmly. You do not need to choose marriage now, but a betrothal will save her from challenge. She doesn't need saving. She is the strongest woman I know, Harry said with a smile at her. And if it's such a problem, I will simply not return. Not until we are engaged. Simple. You profess you are merely falling in love, but you would spurn Asgard for her? Frigga asked, a sudden smile on her face. If I had to choose, yes, Harry said simply. You have chosen wisely, my dear, Frigga said, turning to Natasha. Come, we have much to do. With that, Natasha and Frigga stood up. What just happened? Harry asked of nobody. I believe Mother has done what she has done for so many before. You might as well start looking for a ring, Thor said with a chuckle as he sat down next to Harry. Odin chuckled too. Does everyone know what is going on except for me? Harry asked. At least 10 people around the hall answered yes. Suddenly the warriors 3 and Sif trotted up to Harry. All but Sif were smiling. Volstagg was carrying a bunch of ingredients. Harry just looked at him and asked, Pizza? And Volstagg smiled. Harry noticed a movement, and saw Odin had an index finger up. Huh, looks like he liked the pizza too. Harry just sighed and looked up. Okay, let's make this fun. First off, Harry waved his hand in the air and added charm after charm. And when the hall's ceiling started lighting up, he released it. A great fireworks display started in the vaulted hall. As everyone looked up at the spectacle, Harry spread out his magic and started chopping up the ingredients, transfiguring them, left, right, and center. More ingredients came flying in as Harry suspended the sliced and transfigured bread in the air. He had his magic go wild to get rid of the nervous tension. When he felt the fireworks were going to stop, he'd add another that looked like a phoenix that sparked and left a trail in its wake as it flew, and Fox started chasing it around. Then a miniature dragon that followed after him along with a host of magical creatures, unicorns, sphinxes, and griffons. When he felt he had enough magic in the air to distract a while longer, he finished his pizzas off with cheese and started baking them. He added a final big explosion that would end with little fairies made of light, seemingly falling out of the air, wounded only to flitter around the crowd as they watched in amazement, before vanishing. When it was over, there was a massive applause, and when they looked back at Harry, there were 50 pizzas arranged in front of him on a conjured long table. He took one slice of each kind and levitated them onto the table in front of Odin. Odin smiled and boomed, Thank you, Harry, for a marvelous display, wonderful drink and exquisite food. The crowd chorused Odin and toasted him. Then, to Volstag's horror, there was a mad rush, as everyone seemed to want to try the pizza, as Harry just stood back and smiled, catching his breath. Too much was going on tonight that he did not understand. Magic, though. He understood magic. There was loud celebrations and the music picked up, and people were merry. As the Warriors 3 moved on, Sif stayed behind. Do you find strong women unappealing? She asked, not looking at him. I do not. In fact, Natasha is one of the strongest women I know, Harry said. Then why is it that every time I show interest in a man they go out of their way to find someone else? She asked. She said it emotionlessly. Let me tell you a story, and then you answer your own question. When she made to speak, Harry silenced her. He walked around her so he could look her in the eyes and sat down on a bench. He pointed and a chair appeared behind her. He waited and she sat. There once was a young boy. His relatives hated him and made him work like a slave. One day he found out he had a way to get away from them. So when the chance came, he jumped at it. He ran away to a far-off land, where he found out that he was famous for deeds not his own. His parents had died when he was just a small child, defeating a great evil, and everybody accredited the feat to him. When he arrived at this new land, he found he had admirers, and when he grew old enough, girls started flocking to him, wanting to be close to the person who they thought saved them all. He had tried connecting with some of them, but he couldn't really trust them because they weren't after him. They were after his perceived power. One of these girls decided he was her man and ended up following him, hoping to catch his eye. When she finally realized his eyes were never going to be on her, she decided to play tricks to draw his attention. When that didn't work, she finally gave up. What happened next is the important part. The boy, having stopped having to hide from her, one day saw her smile as she toiled at a difficult task. She was suddenly beautiful. She didn't need anyone to make her happy, and suddenly he wanted to know her. It took a while, but they started a friendship, and as she got to know him, she learned of his flaws and fears and that he was just like her. When she realized that, she understood for the first time what real love was. It's not for the achievements and the glory, and being able to tell others of her conquest. The flaws that only she knew and accepted connected them deeper than he had ever connected with anyone in his miserable life, and he loved her in return. Do you understand now? Harry said. Sif shook her head, wondering if he thought she was after prestige. The boy was lonely, even with so much attention, because none of it was real. The girl couldn't make him happy until she knew what happiness was. Came a deep voice from behind him. Harry spun and realized Odin had walked up to them. He looked at Harry. Was she your first love? He asked. Yes, she was, Harry said solemnly. He cancelled the silencing spell on Sif, excused himself, and walked out of the hall. He was standing on a balcony overlooking the starry sky, when Sif found him again. You weren't just talking about your first love, Sif said. No, I wasn't, Harry said, not even looking up. You were talking about loneliness. You knew me because you know loneliness, she said again. Yes, I do, he said solemnly. Does the pain ever fade? She asked. One can distract oneself from it. It is very productive with anything else than the actual problem, Harry said. How does one overcome it? She asked. You don't. You accept it, and try to be happy anyway. You strive to a goal that helps others without expecting gains for yourself. Only when you achieve true selfless happiness will others notice it and be drawn to it. He then looked at her. Do you know what I saw when I looked at you the first time? What? She asked. How can such a beautiful woman be so unhappy? If I knew her, I'd want to see her smile, Harry said. She smiled for a moment and then looked off into the distance again. Where do I start? She then asked. A change is as good as a holiday. Take a break, go somewhere new. See how other people make themselves happy and try what they do for a while. Somewhere along the way, you will discover something about yourself. And then another. At some point, you'll share those things with someone and they will know you better than anyone. Harry said, looking up at the stars again himself. They stood there for a couple of minutes, and then, thank you, for trying to help me even if I am a pretty face with no substance. Oh, quit fishing for a compliment. You're more than pretty and have more than enough substance. You just don't know it. Find that out for yourself. Let me tell you a little secret. People can see their own pain and problems in others. When you see someone struggling with something obvious, look inside yourself, and see if it isn't you struggling with it, and then help them if they are willing. That way you'll know how to help yourself. Harry said. The Allfather is right. You are wise. Sif said. Bad experiences teach us all the same lessons. We must just learn to look to see them. I once heard it said that a wise man learns from his mistakes. A truly wise man learns from others. I'm afraid I'm not truly wise, he said with a smirk. And what about women? Sif asked, with a straight face. Did you just make a joke? That's progress already, Harry said. Sif actually smiled this time, and that is the smile that will get you noticed, Harry said, with a smirk. They laughed and walked back to the hall. People were still partying and dancing, and telling stories and reminiscing. It was a great atmosphere. Harry? Sif asked. Yes, Lady Sif, Harry asked. Can we be friends? She asked haltingly. We are friends, Sif. But if you try and steal my Natasha, I'll fight you, he warned with raised hands and a mocking smile on his lips. Oh, you wish you could take me, Sif said. Well, probably not in a fair fight, but I cheat, he said, pointing at her arm and hitting it with a stinging hex. Ouch! That hurt. She rubbed her arm and hit him playfully on his arm. She smiled though and walked off to the Warriors 3. Harry went to rejoin Thor at one of the front tables. Hey Harry, come sit, Thor invited. I was wondering, could I perhaps sneak to Midgard with you? He said. He was pretty drunk, and only half the bottle was gone. I'd come right back, of course, if you let me use your Phoenix, but I really would like to go visit Jane for a couple of hours. You do realize that it's so late there, you definitely have to wake her up, and that women are seldom in the mood for intimacy when they are woken up by a drunk partner, right? Harry asked. Really? He asked blurrily. It would probably be best if I don't do it then. Wait, what about that spell you did to wake us up from drunkenness? Do you mean sober us up? I could do that, but then she'd still be asleep and you'd still be waking her up. Harry reminded him. You are right, of course. I just never get to see her anymore. I'm stuck here in Asgard, the Bifrost isn't fixed yet, and I just want to go visit her. Hey, what about that spell to wake us up from drunkenness? Thor repeated himself. Thor, you are drunk. Go to bed before you do something you might regret, Harry told him. Thor just waved him off and walked over to the Warriors, 3 and Sif. Harry could hear from where he was sitting. Hey Sif, that's a good smile. You should wear it more. Harry just smiled. He decided to check on Odin. Majesty, are you enjoying the feast? Harry asked as he walked up beside him. Very much so, Harry. Very much so. Everybody is in good spirit. There seems to be more energy than normal, and it has been a while since I saw Sif look quite so energetic. Did you stray, or did you give her some advice? Odin asked with a smile, already knowing the answer. I told her some more of my experiences. She seems to think there's hope now that she might not end up alone, Harry said. Oh, and how did you do that? Odin asked. I may have convinced her to go on a vacation to see how other people enjoy their lives, Harry said. That might actually help, thank you, Odin said with a smile. It's no problem. I just hope she finds a good place, without too much violence. She's been up to her eyebrows in that for a long time, as I understand it, Harry said. I'm sure you can keep her out of trouble, Odin said. I'm sorry, but what? Harry asked. Odin chuckled. Have you not noticed she keeps looking at you and talking to the Warriors 3? She's making plans to leave with you. Oh, my day just keeps getting better, Harry sighed. Could I ask a question? Odin asked. Of course, Majesty, Harry said. Where did you encounter Monoceros? Odin asked. Monoceros? Harry asked. Yes, the horse with the horn. They are native to Alfheim, as I recall, Odin explained. There's unicorns on Alfheim, Harry crowed. Magical creatures already exist here. I'm assuming you would like some, Odin asked. Do you have any? Harry asked in a whisper. No, but I could have some rounded up. Why though? They are useless as mounts, Odin asked. Because they are potions ingredients. Their hair is anyway. When I came to this world, I didn't bring any magical creatures. I brought lots of plants, but no creatures. If I could find some of the ones we need, we could make many more potions, Harry exclaimed. Then you are in luck. The Lady Sif knows most of the creatures of the realms. She might be able to find some for you, if you can describe them to her, Odin said. I can do better. I can show her my memories of them, Harry continued enthusing. It is then fortuitous that you have had this misunderstanding. She can help you as you help her. Odin smiled and took a small sip of his fire whiskey. Harry looked at his bottle and realized he'd only had 2 or 3 glasses worth. Small ones. He really enjoyed the drink. This made Harry even happier that he had made the split-second decision to bring it. Spotting Thor as he talked to Volstagg, who had a heaping plate of pizza, still, he said, "I'm afraid your son has disregarded my suggestion that he take it easy on the drink. Last time I checked he had drunk half his bottle and was slurring slightly." "Do the Aesir get hangovers?" Harry asked. "Not normally, but with this, I suspect he might. It will be a humbling experience for him. It is too bad you will be back on Midgard and unable to use your magic to help him," Odin said, chuckling and nodding at the door to the hall. Frigga and Natasha walked in, and Natasha was smiling brightly when she saw Harry. More so than Harry could ever remember. Frigga looked rather pleased as well. When they reached them, Frigga sat next to her husband and hugged him. Natasha came to stand by Harry. "I'm ready to go home," she said. Harry looked at her. "We may have a new housemate," he said, and at her frown, "I'll explain later." Harry then went to go stand in front of the king and bowed. "King Odin, I believe we are ready to depart." Instantly Sif stood up and walked over to them before bending on one knee and addressing her monarch. "My king, the wizard has given me instruction on how to resolve a personal inadequacy I find most vexing. He has offered to take me to Midgard to learn what is needed. If I may have your permission to accompany him this evening, I would be deeply grateful. And how say you, wizard and council, to the royal family? Do you agree to care for my subject as one of your own house?" Odin said loudly. There were gasps and murmurs of counsel to the royal family. "You honor me with such prestige, Majesty. I will of course fulfill your subject's request and my friend's need." Harry looked and smiled at Sif, who smiled back. "And how long do you expect this task will take?" Odin asked. "There is no certain way to tell, I'm afraid. The process will proceed faster with less pressure to perform it. As such, I request an indeterminate period assigned to my house so that we may best address the problem at hand." "Granted," Odin said after some thought. "Lady Sif, you are remanded into the hands of our Council of Midgard. Should he fail in his duties to supply for you a healthy and worthwhile experience to combat the inadequacy you find in yourself, you have our permission to return home. Though I highly doubt that he will fail, he has proven time and again that he does what he sets out to do. I expect you to give your best efforts." "Of course, my king," Sif said and got up. "Before you leave, Council, there is the matter of your payment for what you have brought and offered us, along with payment for 3 more such deliveries as soon as it is manageable." As Odin said it, 2 men walked in with what looked like a small mountain of gold, carried on a metallic framework between them. They deposited it before Harry and he kept his face passive. Not wanting to give insult by refusing, he said, "Thank you, Majesty. I will assure that your order is placed and delivered as soon as it is ready. Would you prefer it in barrels or bottles?" "I rather like the bottles. It makes it easier to quantify and use sparingly," Odin replied with a small smile. "As you wish, Majesty. Farewell, King Odin, Queen Frigga." He looked around but could not spot Thor. "If you would pass my greetings on to Prince Thor, that would be greatly appreciated." Harry then lifted his hand and the gold lifted up and streamed into his bag. "Lady Sif, Lady Natasha, if you would please grab hold of me." They each took hold of an arm. "Fox." The phoenix dropped down and stood on his shoulder before letting out a song of exquisite beauty and flamed away with his passengers. Just as Thor jumped at them from behind Volstagg, he missed. They landed in Harry's house laughing at Thor's drunken attempt to hitch a ride. "Thank you, Fox." Harry thanked the phoenix. Just before he disappeared to his perch, though, he let out a chirp and Harry blushed, but said nothing. Natasha looked at him and asked, "What did he say?" "He asked if I have another mate. Apparently phoenixes don't do monogamy." Harry sighed. "Makes sense." Natasha said, "He is a male after all." Sif actually laughed. "You do realize he doesn't need to make a sound to speak to me. He wanted you to ask," Harry said. "Are you saying the phoenix was making fun of you?" Sif asked. "Exactly," Natasha interjected. She and Sif laughed more. Harry scowled but took the laughter good-humoredly. "Natasha, would you please show her the lower east wing and tell her how to work her lights and fire? I have to go deliver a pile of gold to Tony's living room floor. He'll have to handle conversion in the morning." "Okay, does her room have a mirror?" Natasha asked. "Not an enchanted one, but it's a good idea." I'll set one up in the next couple of days, but we'll have to get her situated first, and get her the essentials. She'll need normal clothes and accessories. Getting used to the normal way of doing things here might not come naturally at first, but I suspect she will adjust just fine, Harry said. Come to my rooms first. I can show you what you have to look forward to, Natasha said. Harry apparated to Tony's house and went to the living room. He upturned the bag, since it only contained gold anyway, and waited for it to finish. Just as the last coins fell on the floor, a disgruntled Tony walked in looking like hell. What the hell, Harry? I'm trying. He spotted the gold. What's that? Payment from Odin for the current and next 3 deliveries. He prefers bottled, by the way. Harry informed him. Can we actually use this? Harry asked, looking at the gold. Sure, we'll have to do it slowly over time, but we'll get our money. That's a lot of gold, Tony said, wide awake. Apparently our mistake counts as an improvement in Asgard. Thor was drunk off his ass by half a bottle within an hour. Harry smirked. Profit-wise, Asgard just paid for our first distillery and the ingredients and the materials. We're looking good so far. We don't need more distilleries. Once we start selling magic-infused alcohol, people will be vying for the stuff. I might have to change the enchantments for the general public, though. We can't have normal people breathing fire, after all. If they can afford it and we've got stock, we're making money. This is a luxury commodity they can pay. With things we do to help people, different story. What's that saying? Exclusivity creates demand? Harry asked. That's right. Okay, we'll stick with the one. I can't have you spending all day enchanting, after all. I'll handle the gold and payments will come to you, and Bruce tomorrow. I'll just say I'm playing in the gold market when people ask what happened to the money, Tony said. Okay, thanks, Harry said. Listen, I've got to go. We'll chat in the morning, okay? Harry said. Hey, what am I supposed to do with all this gold on my living room floor? Tony asked. Harry just smiled and disapparated. Tony was a smart man, he'd figure it out. Meanwhile, back at Casa del Potter, Sif was following Harry's chosen companion down the hall to her private residence. Harry had gifted it to her, apparently. Natasha was telling her that Harry intended to make the house into a home and training ground for the Avengers. She was at first shocked that they were not sharing a bed at all times. Natasha informed her that Harry was far too noble and gentle-hearted to expect such a thing on a regular basis, and she respected him all the more for it. Her respect also grudgingly increased, for Natasha. When she had first heard that Harry had shown up on Asgard, she was happy, hoping that this time they would get an opportunity to speak alone. But when she heard he had come with a woman, her spirits had fallen, and then she saw the woman. She could not fault Harry for his choice. She was a warrior, slim-built, but you could see in her gait and armor that she was a coiled spring, and beautiful, pure femininity in her every movement and curve, more so than she thought of herself. She had feared all hope lost before she had spoken to him, and he told her a tale of his own experience. When Odin had turned up during the telling, she was shocked to see a passing emotion of sympathy on his face, before he explained the meaning to Harry's words and then confirmed that Harry had suffered a great loss. She felt shame for her anger at him for his supposed slight, when he was merely trying to help her. When his sadness took him from the hall, the Allfather had told her to give him a bit of time before following to ensure he was not lost in grief. He was a friend to Asgard, and they would care for him in times of need. When she went to him, he pushed his grief away selflessly and continued sharing his wisdom. She was touched by his offer and vowed to herself to live up to his expectations, that she merely needed to free herself of her preconceptions to achieve her own happiness. Harry was a wise man, far beyond his seeming paltry years, and why would he not be? He was a wizard. Didn't the word mean wise man? Now she was being shown the feats of magic Harry had seemingly left for others' convenience, spread throughout his house. Lights would activate by words and fires would spring up without the need for tinder and seemingly never-ending fireplaces. Marvels of art adorned his halls, which Natasha informed her were of significant value to him and from his old home. There were even a couple of portraits that would wave and attempt to speak to them. Strangely garbed people and flying creatures she had seen in the other realms, mounted by knights with swords raised. Gem-encrusted eggs covered in gold, with the finest of details carved in a hand that would put the dwarves of Nidavellir to shame in their exquisite intricacy, and of which would be worth a king's ransom, stood in plain view in glass display cases. When they reached Natasha's place of residence, she was asked to enter, so she did. Inside was a neatly designed room with comfortable seats, covered in what looked to her to be the softest man-made materials. She was shown the small kitchen with a cabinet that kept things cold and in stasis, so that nothing ever spoiled. There were also implements and a stove and oven for cooking, with comfortable benches around a counter where she said one could eat. The facilities were small but efficient. The shower seemed a convenient way to clean up, and she would enjoy trying that before bed tonight. Then she was shown to Natasha's bedroom, where a large, comfortable-looking bed took up a large portion of the equally large room. There were more seats, some made for more than one person, and they were arranged around another enchanted fireplace. She could see the convenience and comfort intended. Indeed, it seemed that the mortals had come up with many ways to convenience themselves and see to their own comfort and efficiency. Then Natasha led her to a closet. It was larger than she had thought and contained so many clothes. Who could need this much clothes? But Natasha drew her attention to a mirror, saying, it was an enchanted one which would speak as a reflection of one's own perceptions. Natasha excused herself quickly so that Sif may be left with her reflection, stating that Harry had warned that the mirror could reveal things about oneself that one would rather not speak aloud. You are looking good today, Mirror Sif said. Better than normal. You have a look of hope to you that I never thought I'd see again. That is good, but you must get something new to wear. These mortals seldom wear the same clothes twice in a row, if they can help it. Thank you, Sif said, not knowing what else to say. It was as if the mirror knew her heart. Thank yourself. I am a reflection. You know what I say is true because you believe it yourself. My primary purpose is to see you beautiful and happy, Mirror Sif said. Sif stepped out of the closet and closed the door. Natasha was waiting for her. Thank you. You have shown me much tonight. Perhaps we too will become friends while I am here. I hope so, Natasha stated. It's just us two women in a house that would soon otherwise be overrun with men. Natasha then smirked. I could also use a strong sparring partner. Harry is good, but he does not test my limits as often as I'm sure the Lady Sif of Asgard could. That would be a nice change for me as well. Sif replied with a grin. It had been a while since she had a worthy female opponent. Come, I'll take you to your room. We usually have breakfast together. I'll quickly go see if Bruce is awake and inform him of our new housemate. He likes to do the cooking, so it would be best if he's aware of you, so he can prepare extra. Natasha said, in the morning you can join Harry and me in our morning workout, and then we'll go get you some new clothes. Harry can create something for you in the meanwhile. Natasha smirked and led her to the other wing of the house, where she entered her own rooms, to find it was very similarly decorated, but with slightly different furnishings, and a different color scheme. Where Natasha's were green, hers was in a pale yellow. She bid Natasha good night and looked through her rooms before taking a shower. It felt very relaxing being sprayed by the hot water and washing the unsightly grime and sweat from her body. Once done, she dried herself with the soft towel and got in bed. The bed was soft and comfortable, and somehow supported her body like no other bed ever had. She was asleep in under a minute. Harry arrived back at his house and went to Natasha's room. They had much to discuss. He knocked on the door softly, hoping not to wake her if she was already asleep. No answer. Resigned, he decided to go to his room and get some sleep. When he opened the door to his apartment, it was to find Natasha waiting for him on a couch. Oh, hi, he said lamely. Were you hoping to avoid me tonight? She asked with a smirk. Actually, I was just down at your room. I wanted to speak with you about a couple of things that were said tonight, Harry said. What a coincidence. So do I. Natasha returned. Okay, Harry said, sitting down across from her on another couch. She rolled her eyes, got up, and sat next to him. There is no reason to distance yourself, Harry, Natasha said. I am the same person I was yesterday. I know. I was more worried about your reaction to my story, Harry said, staring into the fire that Natasha must have started. Well then, how about I begin? At Harry's nod, she continued. This is private, so I hope you will keep it to yourself. Of course, Natasha, Harry promised. Okay, let's start with what you know about the Black Widow program. You tell me and I'll fill in the blanks where I can, Natasha said. She seemed nervous, so he put an arm around her and she relaxed a little. I know that it was a program to indoctrinate and train children from a young age to become spies and killers. Besides that, I know where it took place. Not much else, Harry said. It was hell, she said softly. We were trained in everything from weapon handling to ballet, control and precision. How to get a man's attention to let down his guard so we can take advantage of their weakness. Thus, the Black Widow spider, Harry said, nodding. Exactly, and like the Black Widow spider, here she halted. But Harry continued, you were forced to mate with and kill your prey. She was not looking at him. So he took her chin in his hand and forced her head to him. Then he kissed her and said, you are not a victim. You are the strongest woman I know, and you are mine. I won't let you go unless that's what you want. He knew her insecurity. She feared he would reject her because she was dirty, tainted somehow. I marvel at the fact that you held on to your heart through all that. I have seen strong people go through less and wilt. But you are a rose blooming in the winter, a miracle that should not happen but did. She looked at him as if he had just taken hold of her worst fears and destroyed them with his magic. For a moment she felt his conviction in his heart, and it shone on her like the sun. He did not reject her because of her ugliness, but accepted her in spite of it. He seemed to think that she was still somehow pure, that her heart was what mattered, not her body or past. Her face felt wet, confused. She reached up and found tears running from her eyes, and as if the realization opened something up, her emotions flew out, and she started crying for the first time in many, many years. She cried for her loss, for her fears, for her pain, and for every victim that ever begged for mercy. And through it all, Harry just held her. He did not move, but to rub her back and encouraging her to let it out. And she did. She cried and she shook as horrors upon horrors visited her behind her closed eyes. But she knew she was safe. There was at least one person who knew, and he would not let her succumb to her own personal dark history. The fact that he obviously knew darkness himself made it all the more impressive. He accepted her as she was, covered in blood, ledger dripping, with the monstrous past she had hidden from all, and he still smiled at her with those wonderful eyes, still seeing hope in her, when she was finally through the worst of it, sometime later. I won't be dissuaded by your past, you know. I care only about your present and future. I can see you are trying to outrun your past or redeem yourself for it, but leaving it behind is as simple as a choice. You won't become that again, will you? Harry asked, his eyes seemingly piercing her own, a soft glow in them, one she had not seen before. It was kind and welcoming, not anger and rage. No, she said, suddenly certain of it. And she couldn't go back to who she was. If Harry could have a dark past and become who he is, then there was hope. And with that choice made, you are a new person. You no longer have to fear your past, or hide from it, because that was someone else. Someone who died the moment you made the choice. Harry said sincerely. She could see he believed in her without an ounce of doubt. I don't deserve you, she said softly. Let's finish your story. When you hear mine, you might change your mind. Harry said, and suddenly there was doubt in his eyes, not about her, but himself. Okay. She took a breath and wiped her face, before sitting straighter. When our graduation came, we were told to fight and kill each other, so that they would only have the strongest one of us left. I was good and killed most, but not all. There was one girl, who had cared for me when I was in pain and injured. She was scared and didn't want to fight. I protected her. When they came for us, they took her away and told me if I ever failed, they would kill her, and so I did what I did to protect her. There was an operation afterward, where they made it so I could never have children. She paused to look at Harry, who seemed sad for her, but not angry at her. And later injected me with something they called the Infinity Formula. It keeps me strong, and in my prime. Years later, when Clint came for me, he told me she was dead. I took out my displeasure, she spat the word, on those I could get to, and then I left for S.H.I.E.L.D. Tonight, when Frigga took me away, she took me to a device that she used to heal me. She looked closely at him again, looking for his reaction to her next words. I can have children again. She was not disappointed. He smiled at her, genuine happiness for her to have the choice again, and maybe something more, that she could not place, would not hope to. I am so happy for you, he said, and grabbed her in his arms, stood up and spinning her around. Frigga has done something wonderful for you. We'll have to find a way to repay her, Harry said enthusiastically as he put her down. Just don't ask her what she wants, otherwise we'll be married by the next day. She smirked at him through the last of her tears. He knew she was teasing him, but didn't care. He knew now why she had been so happy when they came back. She must have been devastated when she realized that one day she would not have had the option of children. I don't know, I could do worse, he joked with a thoughtful look on his face. Harry, don't joke like that. You never know who is listening, right? She said with mock seriousness. Heimdall, if you tell Frigga that I said that I will turn you into the world's funkiest looking goat when next I visit. Harry suddenly exclaimed. Natasha laughed. You don't have to be so adamant about not wanting to marry me, she said through her chuckles. What is it with contact with Frigga that makes that subject come up so much? Harry lamented. Oh, relax. We're not ready. You haven't even asked me out officially yet. She said this like a joke, but Harry could hear an edge to her words. If you still want me to after my story, I'll ask you. I just didn't want to ask you before you knew enough about me. It wouldn't be right to you. Harry said. Natasha straightened up and then, go on. Harry told her his story, telling her of some of the darker things he had been forced to do and willingly went through to achieve his goals, those he loved and lost, and finally and for the first time yet, what he hoped to achieve by helping them and where the information came from. Wait, hold on. You're telling me that you are here to save our world and in doing so hope to restore your own. And you're worried that I'm going to reject you? She asked incredulously. Way to summarize the current mission and skip over everything I've done, Harry said. Oh, you're about as dark as Bruce on a good day. Natasha had really learned to enjoy her time with Bruce. He was a seriously happy person, given the chance, and it was infectious. Everything you did was to help someone or save people. By that logic, so are you, Harry returned. At least I had a choice. You only think you did, Harry. You are a true hero, more so than myself. Everything you do is to help people. Someone bad just noticed and held infinitely more hostages. I'm just surprised you're still sane, she exclaimed. How could he not see himself? So you're saying the whole Master of Death thing doesn't scare you? Harry asked, looking away for a second, until she took his chin this time and kissed him. How many girls can say they are dating the Master of Death? She asked with a shrug. Hold on, does that mean you'll be my girl? Yes, it does. She lunged at him and kissed him soundly, before getting up and starting to walk to his bedroom while starting to undress. You know what I'm wearing under this armor. Are you coming? She asked coyly. Not yet, he responded quickly, getting up and running after her, a smile on his face. The next morning had the four of them sitting around the breakfast table having breakfast. Sif had been up for a while and had found Bruce making breakfast in the kitchen. She had introduced herself and asked if she could help. Bruce had been told that they had another house guest, but had still gaped. This woman was beautiful. He had declined her offer to help, but told her she was welcome to keep him company. Then they chatted amiably until Harry and Natasha came down for breakfast. So, I was thinking of taking Fury his surprise today, Harry said to Bruce. Is it time for that already? Bruce asked, surprised. I thought you enjoyed it. It takes up too much of my time, Harry said. Are you opening them up today then? Bruce asked. I think so, yes, Harry said. It's going to get busy here. I might need some help in the kitchen, Bruce said. It won't be that bad, Harry said. Natasha ignored them, and when Sif looked at her, she just winked. Sif shrugged and decided to ignore them as well. After breakfast, Natasha was about to show the room of requirement to Sif, when Harry stopped her. I think we have to go talk to Fury. Probably a good idea to introduce Sif as well, he said. Okay. Should we go there now or pick up Fury's surprise first? Natasha asked with a raised eyebrow. She wasn't going to lose this one. She refused to ask what surprise. That's the idea. I need you to check it out first anyway. Test that it would work for what we need. Harry led them to the trunk. Lady Sif, he started. Call me Sif. It is customary here and we are friends. She smiled lightly. Thank you. Okay, Sif, what I'm about to show you is one of my biggest secrets, Harry said. It must remain a secret always, or the last of my home's memories will be in peril. I swear to you on my life, your secrets stay with me to the grave, Sif said. Well, okay then, I suppose that will do. Harry shrugged and down they went. Harry gave the customary tour and Sif seemed less impressed than most. But then she was from Asgard. When they got to the new room Harry had recently added for the Ashwinders, Sif said, Fiend worms. Interesting. You know these creatures? Harry asked. Yes, you find them often on Muspelheim, she said. You and I are going to have a long talk and share some memories later, Harry promised. He then led them to his artifacts room. There he showed a couple of items and once again he was displeased at the fascination with flying carpets. Once the tour was over, Harry took them to the corner where his bench was. He lifted up what looked a lot like his dragon armor, but was made from thick shiny black leather. It still had a hood and face covering though. "Try this on for me and tell me your experience of it." Harry handed it to Natasha. She put on the jacket and pants over her clothes and it changed to fit to her form. She then put the helm and face mask up. "It's comfortable and easy to breathe in. I can see through the sides of the hood too." "Good. Say the command phrase, ghost in the night." She did, and then disappeared. "Good. Walk around for me and make as much noise as you can with your feet." Harry could follow her, because he could see through his magic. But Sif was looking around for her, listening for any sound. Awesome, that was the final test. "You may return to visibility," command phrase, ghost returns. When she returned to visibility, she looked at Harry. "Is this for me?" Harry wasn't sure, but he thought she sounded hopeful. "I'm afraid not. That is for the ghost of S.H.I.E.L.D., Harry said. "But keep it on for now. This will be a good test for the director." "You're quitting S.H.I.E.L.D.?" Natasha asked, worried. "Not really. I'm giving them something that they can put on a contracted individual, so they don't need me so much," Harry said. "After all, I wouldn't want to lose my handler," he said, smirking. "Good idea," Natasha said, smirking too, relieved. Not that Harry could see it. "Okay, hold on a moment." Harry took out his book and went to the mirror. "Director," Harry said at the mirror and waited. A minute later, the director's face appeared in his mirror. "Agent Potter. Permission to appear in your office with guests, sir?" Harry asked. "Hold on." Fury pressed the button to protect his office. "Go ahead." "See you now." Harry closed the book, put it away and picked up a box. Then he took hold of Natasha's shoulder. "Sif, if you would touch Natasha's shoulder, please." She did as requested, and Harry said, "Natasha, please say the command phrase, ghost to command." She did, and the permanent two-way port key activated. They were suddenly in Fury's office. "Agent Potter, who are your guests?" Fury was frowning. He recognized the outfit. "Allow me to introduce you to the new ghost of S.H.I.E.L.D., Harry said. "A demonstration, please." "Ghost in the night," was heard, and then the person disappeared. Then, next to Fury, the person reappeared. Fury jumped, but Harry locked his gun in its holster, having expected something like this. "Ghost, would you please reveal your identity?" Harry asked. She took off the hood and mask. "Romanoff?" Fury asked. "The same," Natasha said. Knowing what was going on, she removed the ghost gear and placed it on Fury's desk. Harry pointed at the suit and said, "May I introduce you to the ghost gear?" He placed the box he had taken from his artifacts lab and placed it in front of Fury, and accessories. When Harry explained his plan after answering some questions, Fury seemed relieved for some reason. Harry didn't question it. He assured the director he was still with S.H.I.E.L.D., just that he needed more time to work on his projects. When Fury inquired about Sif, Harry explained the situation to a degree without betraying Sif's confidence, and Fury only accepted the situation because it was a personal request from Odin, and Harry accepted full responsibility. When they were done with Fury, they went to go find Clint. Apparently he and Natasha had chatted the previous day, and she knew he was back from a mission. They found him in the firing range. "Clint." Natasha got his attention. "Hey Nat, I heard you were taking a bit of time off babysitting your boyfriend," Clint teased. "I am, and he is," Natasha said with a smile. Clint hadn't expected that. He looked at Harry and warned, "You better take good care of her." "I intend to," Harry said seriously. Clint looked at him for a second longer before nodding. "Clint, let me introduce the Lady Sif of Asgard. She'll be staying at Harry's place for a while," Natasha said, indicating the warrior. "Sif, this is Clint Barton, or Hawkeye. He's one of the Avengers." "Greetings. It is good to meet one of Harry's companions," Sif said. Clint moved to her and offered her a hand. "Same. Anyway, I'm here to deliver this." Harry took what looked like a leather armband with a small metal plate with a stylized A on it from his pocket and handed it to Barton. "You should wear this at all times. It's a port key that takes you to my house and back to where you started, where there is a surprise happening this afternoon. I'd like all Avengers to be there at 12 p.m. "How do I activate it?" Clint looked at the armband. "Touch your index finger to the metal plate and say the command phrase, Avengers. Hearth." Harry shrugged. He didn't think they needed specialized code phrases for this one. To return, say, "Take me back. Just remember magic and tech don't mix." "You're going to love this," Natasha informed him. "I'll be there," Clint said with a shrug. Harry seemed to be good for Natasha, as she seemed happier than Clint had seen her in a while. They bid him farewell and went in search of Steve next. When everyone was given a band except for Thor, Harry found that he had about an hour left before everyone was to meet at his house. He needed to do something first. They returned home and Harry asked the ladies to excuse him. He went upstairs and started casting. He called for Fawkes and asked him if he could go fetch Thor. Fawkes agreed easily. That done, Harry met them downstairs just in time for the first arrival, Steve. Of course he would be early. Harry just smiled. Welcome to the Avengers home base. Steve looked up as Harry descended the stairs. Home base? You'll see, Harry said mysteriously. Just then Thor appeared with Fawkes. They greeted and Harry tried informing him of the plans. But apparently Heimdall had alluded to the meeting and some surprises already. Bruce, Natasha and Sif showed up together. Lunch is ready, Bruce said. Apparently the other two had helped. We're just waiting on Tony and, Harry said just as Clint showed up in a squatting stance. Clint. Hi, welcome. That portkey thing will take some getting used to, Clint said standing up. The first time is rough. I'd kind of like it now. It's like a flying roller coaster, Harry said. If that's what you want to call it, Clint shrugged. Useful though. I assume I could use this for emergencies. You could. Just don't use the return phrase if you were in a bad location. Rather have someone take you to base and then use the home phrase to bring you back here. It resets the return location to the new location, Harry warned. I'll keep that in mind. He looked around. Stark late again? Yup, Harry said. Let's go get some lunch in the meanwhile. Bruce prepared it, and Tony knows where the dining room is. They all went to the dining room and had some sandwiches with salad. Sif and Thor enjoyed it. Sandwiches must not be a thing in Asgard, Harry thought. Tony showed up halfway through. He complained that they had started without him, but nobody cared. You snooze, you lose. Thor and Steve shared one of your sandwiches already. Next time you'll be on time, Harry said. I was busy, Tony whined. And how many times did Pepper tell you that you were going to be late? Harry asked with a smirk. Oh, shut up. Tony replied good-naturedly. I was finalizing some things. Here, he reached into his bag and removed some cell phones. In case Harry forgot to tell you your electronics were fried coming here, unless you have MI Tech. My Tech? Clint asked. And no, he warned us. He reached out and took a phone. Magic immune. It's also immune to electromagnetic interference and radiation should it be necessary. Best thing is you can put it in your bag. Exclusively available from Stark Industries and Potter Innovations for select clients. Tony bragged. So, what's did you call the meeting for? Steve asked Harry. Now that everyone is here, I've got 2 surprises set up. Once lunch is done, I'll go show you, Harry said. Once everyone was done, they walked out and followed Harry up the stairs. Once they were on the 2nd floor, Harry called, ladder, and a ladder came down from the ceiling. He climbed up it to what would be an attic. In it was an apartment. The outside walls were see-through, like they were made of glass. Welcome to the attic. Clint, this apartment is yours. The archery range is the reason you get the biggest rooms. Come, check it out. Harry led them through a door on the side. In it was a very large room with stationary targets set up around the room and moving ones above. Some were moving really fast. Clint moved to a bow and a stand of arrows and tested the bow on one of the stationary targets. His aim was slightly off, but he still got near the bullseye. Knowing how to adjust for the bow now, he next aimed at one of the moving targets. This time he hit dead center. The target disappeared and reappeared in a new location, and the arrow returned to its starting location. Seeing the other target was still there, he aimed another shot at it, and this time hit dead center as well. The target disappeared and reappeared in a new location as well, both arrows back in its stand. This will be a fun place to train, he said with a genuine smile on his face. He looked at Harry. Thank you. You're going to love it at night. The targets have vague outlines and you'll have to be very accurate to hit the bullseye. If your arrows are all expended, they will all return here. Harry pointed at the stand. I can't wait, Clint said excitedly. What about broken arrows? Same thing, so don't be afraid to use all your strength. The bow can handle it, since it's basically indestructible, Harry said. Clint's eyes went to the bow. Can I keep it? He asked in wonder. It's yours. Just don't lose it and remember it's magical, so be careful with arrows that shoot tech, Harry warned. Next they went back to the second floor, and Harry revealed the north wing with a wave of his hand. It had 3 apartments. One for Thor, Steve, and Tony. Steve's apartment had a balcony that looked out on one of a number of illusionary scenes. Every time he opened the door, a new one would appear. Rainforests, the Grand Canyon, Mount Everest, and Fiji. All the 7 wonders of the world, and some cities with impressive skylines. Art supplies were just inside the door. Harry had heard that he liked to sketch. Thor's room was rather basic, but was decorated to be more golden. There was also a large reinforced balcony for him to fly to and return from. There was a large hearth, and one of his taps made exclusively beer. Harry warned him though that it was like the butterbeer and would return to water. Tony's rooms were empty. Harry knew not to set it up for him because Tony liked to do things his way. He whined a bit, until Harry pointed out he could have filled it up with statues of Tony in interesting poses, and he dropped it rather quickly. "Okay, last surprise," Harry said, and led them to the basement. "Natasha, if you would demonstrate." Harry was gleeful. He couldn't wait to see their expressions. Natasha smirked at him and started walking up and down. Everybody looked at her until a door appeared. She slid it open and the dojo was there. She walked them in and told them to wait at the door. Soon the sensei appeared. "Very well," he said, and he and Natasha demonstrated a sparring match until he knocked her on her butt again. She thanked him and led the team out again. "I don't understand. You keep a man to train you in the basement?" Thor asked, confused when the door disappeared. "Obviously the door transports us to a Japanese dojo. Harry must have hired him," Tony said, then looked at Harry. "I suppose I could use the exercise, but I doubt everyone here will be able to learn from him, Harry." Harry just smirked. "Natasha?" Natasha smiled too and walked back and forth again. When the next door appeared, it looked old and wooden. She opened it and walked into what looked like a coliseum. Around them there were hundreds of people who were cheering gladiators, who were fighting a lion. "What the hell?" Tony exclaimed. "Welcome to the room of requirements," Harry said. "It becomes whatever you imagine or require." He then looked at Steve, who was looking at the men fighting the lion and the dead bodies around the ring. "It's not real, it's all magic." Steve looked relieved. "This is our new training room. We can run simulated battles and work on teamwork." "You made a holodeck," Tony exclaimed excitedly. "A what?" Harry asked. "It's geek for room of requirement," Natasha said, smirking at Tony. "I'm not a geek," Tony said indignantly. "I'm a nerd at worst," he finished lamely. "That's science fiction. This is magic," Bruce said. "This is really cool, Harry," he smiled. Everyone exited and Harry decided to show them something that he thought Thor might enjoy. The next door that appeared was made of thick metal. Harry said before opening it, "This one's for you, Thor Sif. Have fun." When the door was opened, they stepped into what looked like a cave, lit by torches. In front of them was a dragon, guarding a hoard of gold. A Hungarian horntail to be precise. "This will be fun," Thor said, smiling. Sif, following him. They soon engaged the dragon. Sif, going for the head while Thor chose to go for body blows. Trying to disable its legs. Thor's hammer hit the dragon many times, but its tough hide took the hits better than Thor would have hoped. Sif was doing much better, dodging and weaving around the claws and teeth, slicing shallow cuts where she hit. The dragon was trying desperately to defend its hoard, but these people were quick and strong. It let out a peal of fire and Sif ran in close and ducked under the fire, while Thor jumped over when the fire reached him. When the fire ended, Sif jumped over the next bite and jammed her sword into the dragon's eye. It screeched and roared and swiped Sif aside with its bladed tail, leaving her sword behind. Thor, seeing his chance, ran up to the creature's head and used his hammer to drive the sword into its brain. The dragon stopped moving instantly and fell to the ground. He and Sif were breathing hard when they returned to the door, but with elated grins. "That was very entertaining, though that tail of his almost broke my armor." "It was very sharp," Sif said. "Hers," Harry corrected. "Hers?" Sif asked. "I only ever faced one dragon and it was a female, so the room took that information to make it," Harry explained. "You've faced a dragon?" Thor asked, slightly impressed. "Only the once. It was for a competition of sorts that I was forced to compete in," Harry said. "How old were you?" Sif asked. 14, Harry said with a shrug. Many eyes were on him. "What?" he asked. He knew he was lucky to survive that encounter. "You wizards are crazy," Tony said, still disbelieving. It wasn't that bad. I was able to escape and defeat it on my broom. The goal was to steal an egg from her clutch. She was nesting? Sif exclaimed. Yeah, that didn't make it easier, but all her eggs survived and only the school building was slightly damaged. Harry shrugged, leading them back out. So much crazy, Tony reiterated. A dragon at a school for a competition against a 14-year-old. Crazy. So, who's next? Harry asked. I'll give it a try, Clint said, before turning to Thor. Sorry about this. He walked up and down, and a plain door appeared. He opened it, and before him stood 6 Lokis smirking at him. It took 3 seconds before all of them had arrows in their eyes, lying dead on the floor. Man, that felt good, Clint exclaimed, a huge smile on his face, lowering the bow he had brought with him. He went to go fetch the arrows, came back and closed the door. You have no idea how much I needed that. Then he asked, mind if I go again? Thor scowled at him but let it go. He knew the man had issues with his brother. He still didn't like seeing him get killed. I think Sif and I had a good enough example. I'd like to give it a try if I may, Bruce asked. Sure thing, Bruce. Harry smiled at him. He was still enjoying Clint's use of the room. Bruce walked up and down until another door appeared. When he opened it, there was a rainforest in front of them. Bruce walked in and bent down in front of a peculiar flower. These are extinct now. I once thought they'd hold the solution to my problems, but in my travels I found this clearing. The sounds of the forest and the peacefulness of this place was the first time I felt free in months. At the time, Bruce looked up at them. This room really is amazing. I might come here sometimes, just to relax in the clearing if that's okay. No problem, Bruce. Just make sure to put up a do not disturb sign, okay? Harry chuckled. Bruce just smiled, walked back out, and closed the door. Before anyone knew it, the sound of tearing clothes was heard and everyone took a step back, as Hulk made an appearance. Thor had seen this before, but Sif was stunned. That small man just changed into what can only be called a troll. Did you want to play too? Harry asked. Hulk smirked at him. Banner showed me. My turn. Hulk walked back and forth, and a large door appeared, with a massive handle. Hulk opened it, and inside there was another Hulk. Fun, he said, and walked in. The other Hulk smiled at him, and then roared. They ran at each other in what seemed to be a large coliseum surrounded by people all chanting, Hulk, Hulk, Hulk. What followed was a brutal fist fight, with kicks and throws. All the while the fans cheered for every blow. Poor guy must feel so unappreciated for this to be his idea of fun, Harry mumbled. If it made Hulk happy, Harry would let him have the room once a day for his fun. Why do you say that? Natasha asked. She had thought fighting someone strong was something Hulk would enjoy normally. It's not the opponent, it's the fans, Harry explained. For his dream to include people who scream for him and not at him, he must really feel like a monster. He seeks approval, acceptance, Sif said, with a sudden look of understanding when Harry sent her a sharp look. Is that what she wanted? After the fight which their Hulk had won, standing over his fallen foe, hands raised at the crowd of cheering fans, he walked back to the door. Thank you, Harry. You a good friend. Then he shrank down and Harry fixed his clothes and handed them to Bruce, who was smiling. Did Hulk just thank you? Tony exclaimed. They're friends, Bruce said as he put his shirt and shoes back on. Did I miss something or do you suddenly have control? Tony asked, still stunned. Not control. We have an understanding. Things are much better between the other guy and me these days, thanks to Harry. We can talk now. I can ask him to come out voluntarily, and he can cede control back to me, willingly, Bruce explained. He finds my job boring, and prefers to rest these days. He doesn't fight to come out simply to exist. Tony, you're up. Tony shook himself from his stupor and thought for a second before smirking and having the door appear. When he opened the door, it was a bar full of Tonys. They were playing pool and having drinks, discussing science and runes. He saw the room for a second before Harry closed the door and said, next. What? I didn't even get to go in. Tony whined. I don't think you wanted to go in there. One Tony Stark is enough. Thank you very much. You're also too smart. One of them would realize that they aren't real, create a mind-swapping machine and take over your life. Not on my watch, Harry said. But that was a whole room full of good ideas and decent conversation, Tony said. Harry ignored him. Steve, do you want to give it a try? I know where I'd go in a heartbeat. Unfortunately, I wouldn't want to leave. Let's skip me for today, Steve said. He would make that date he missed so long ago. He was certain it would only hurt to leave. I understand now that everybody has had a chance. We can plan training sessions with specific variables and surprise ones to improve teamwork, strategy, and efficiency. The Avengers house is officially in business, Harry exclaimed. For those of you who wish to join Natasha, Sif and I for training in the first room, we'll be doing that now. Thor, I'll be sending you back in 3 hours. Do with the time what you will. If anyone is interested, there's an Olympic-sized swimming pool through the other door with sunshine, diving boards, and everything. Clint, Steve, Natasha, Sif, Harry, and strangely Bruce stayed. Thor begged off wanting to go see his lady, and Tony didn't see the point. He could exercise at home. His suit did his fighting for him anyway. Harry suspected that he was worried that he was the weakest of them all without his suit. He'd get him into the training someday. Sensei worked them hard, claiming that they were late. Damn Natasha's mind, for taking that into consideration. She was probably just miffed that Harry had disturbed her exercise routine. He did not know how right he was, but he'd endeavor to not do so again. Steve, Clint, and Sif were all surprised that they were unable to best their opponents, but happy that the training seemed to hold real-life value. Steve and Clint stuck to unarmed techniques, while Sif fought with her sword. Her opponent used a bakken so as not to cut her. She was surprised when her sword did not simply cut through the wooden katana and was grateful for the blunt instrument, because her instructor did not hold back. Harry had progressed to a brown belt, but Natasha's skill had her earn her first dan, so they were still 2 levels apart. When all was over, Bruce had not gotten angry once. He found the kates and exercise meditative. He was at white belt still, but he had never been one for violence. Steve was already on his 3rd dan after the sensei tested him, and Clint was a black belt with no dan. Natasha would not let him ever live it down, he knew. They left the dojo. 3 hours later, everyone thought it was a good idea to go take a shower, except for Harry, who said he was going for a swim instead. Natasha changed her mind and joined him, as did Sif, which made Bruce decide to swim rather as well. He was only a man after all. Harry pointed out the changing rooms when Sif started undressing at the side of the pool, and conjured something he had seen Natasha wear before for both of them, but in different colors. Bruce and he used simple black swimming trunks Harry conjured. When the ladies came out of the changing room, both Harry and Bruce struggled, taking their eyes off the women. Sif looked uncomfortable. Can't I just swim naked? This feels restrictive. She was pointing at her chest. If you want both of the men to never stop looking at you. Sure, but I tell you what, Natasha said, when we go shopping tomorrow, we'll find you something that fits better. Harry isn't all that good with women's clothing, and that is a little small for you. Thanks, Sif said. Harry climbed the 1st level diving board and dived into the water. Bruce followed him. Smirking, Natasha went to the topmost one, which was rather high, and dived in as well, twirling and flipping as she went. Sif followed her and went in feet first, as she had always done. She did not notice at first that her bikini top had come undone, and Natasha had to tie it back on for her. They'd probably have to get her a one-piece swimsuit. After swimming lazily for a bit, Bruce spoke up. Harry, how much weight can your diving boards carry? A bit. Why? Harry asked. Hulk wants to try it. Apparently it looks fun, Bruce explained. Well, let him. If it breaks, I'll just repair it, but if you want, I can focus a bit of magic on it for a while to stop it from breaking, Harry said. Bruce got out, and soon Hulk took his place with a smile on his face. He leaped to the 1st diving platform, and then the 3rd from there. Harry expanded the diving board for him when he got up there and reinforced it. Hulk climbed onto it and jumped experimentally a couple of times as it bent underneath him. He took a giant leap and dive-bombed into the water, causing a huge splash, and the water of the entire pool to start churning like stormy seas. When he came up, he was laughing. He then proceeded to do it a couple of more times. When he was done, he sighed, and Bruce was back. He really enjoyed that. We might need to set one up for him to permanently use, if that's okay. Bruce asked, now just drifting in the water, taking in the sun and happy that this pool didn't need sunblock. Sure, I'll be able to do something for the big guy. Maybe I'll make it green and put only platforms in with no ladder, Harry mused. After an hour, they had enough. Bruce said he needed to go start dinner and check on a potion he was brewing. Sif and Natasha went to her room so Natasha could show her some girly things, which she would need for the next day. Harry didn't ask. He did call Fawkes when he remembered and asked him to go find Thor and return him to Asgard. He'd already had an extra hour. Fawkes seemed to enjoy his new job. Dinner was a talkative affair. Steve and Clint had already moved their belongings, and Harry told them he'd need to show them where the house was so they could find it. Apparently having instant transportation and bags of holding helped their move. They were discussing what they would do in the room and strategies they had used at times, which turned into funny stories and anecdotes. There was laughter and enjoyment all along the table, and Harry felt at home. After dinner, Harry showed them the secret of the house's location, and then one last surprise, his own personal bar, separate from Marauders. This one was called Vengeance. It was hidden in plain sight on the first floor in the north wing. You had to tickle a pear to get in. Harry had thought it appropriate. There were taps for beer and butterbeer, with actual beer in the cold cupboards. There was also wine, whiskey, fire whiskey, vodka, juice, and even some shooters. Everything was stylish and available and in easy reach. There was a pool table, a foosball table, and a darts board. Everybody had a drink, and Clint enjoyed his first fire whiskey. Natasha was showing Sif how to play pool. Steve and Bruce were watching. They would play a doubles game after Sif had learned. As always, there was the old argument about bar rules and old rules. And then the game was on. There was some upbeat music playing from behind the bar, and Harry was playing bartender. He loved seeing his friends unwind and have fun. Next time he'd invite Tony, but for tonight it was for the permanent residents. Clint, having decided his accuracy would spoil the game for the others, sat by the bar. When the others were fully engaged in the game, he asked, "Hey Harry, how much trouble is it setting up this hiding spell you have on your home?" He tried to look nonchalant. "Our home? And not too difficult, why?" Harry asked back. "If I told you I wanted one set up for me personally and some others, would you need to tell anyone?" Clint asked. "No, Clint. If you need a place protected, you came to the right place. What do you need it for?" Harry asked again. "I can trust you with this?" Clint asked. He did trust Harry, but it was his family. He needed to make sure Harry understood the importance. "Do you want me to swear an oath I cannot break, at the cost of my life should I break my word?" Harry asked seriously. No, I just need to make sure you understand the importance," Clint said. He thought about it for a second and then decided to just come out with it. "I have a family, I want them safe." "Done. Do you want to go now?" Harry asked, getting up from his stool. "No, we can go tomorrow. Enjoy your big night. I can see you're enjoying the atmosphere," Clint said in relief. It seemed Harry was taking it seriously. "Could I also ask for a portkey to them? I don't see them as often as I'd like." "Sure thing. Can I trust your family with my secrets?" Harry asked in return. "They won't tell anyone," Clint said honestly. "If anyone finds out about me, who I am, and what I can do, they'll hunt me to the ends of the earth. This is my life we're talking about. So I'll trust you with it as you trust me with them," Harry said seriously. "That actually makes me feel better. If you're as invested as I am, it'll just add a layer of protection," Clint said. "Tomorrow then?" Harry asked, lifting his glass. "Tomorrow," Clint clinked glasses with him and drank. "This is really good stuff," he said, looking at the glass. "Tony, Bruce and I figured out the recipe. We'll be marketing it soon." Harry smiled. "You'll be rich soon then," Clint said. "I already am. It's just a plan for a decent stable income." Harry shrugged. "Then now I don't have to worry about using the last of the stock I have." "Wouldn't want that," Cliff said with a chuckle. "Hey Clint, can you teach me how to use a bow?" Harry asked. "It seems fun." "It is, and sure, I can teach you sometime," Clint said with a smile. "Cool.